All right, well, good evening, everyone. It's been a beautiful past few rainy days in Las Cruces. Just so y'all know, I found out like 5 minutes ago I'm supposed to run this meeting, so hopefully we go without hiccups, but I think we'll be fine. First order of business is there any conflict of interest with any of the agenda items tonight? No, does not seem. Then I think we're good. Why don't we move on to the approval of minutes? Could I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All righty.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Kaiser?
I abstain. I was absent last meeting.
Thank you. Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Acosta?
Yes.
Board Member Guerrero?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. Well, the meetings pass. We are going to be doing an election of officers. As mentioned, the former chair, Mr. Harvey Gordon, resigned, and we need to decide if I'm the new chair, if somebody else wants to do it. Totally fine, but yeah, I don't know how we do this part.
Mr. Chair, Nicholas, for the record, you'll ask the commission to make nominations, and we get a second, and then we go to vote. But ask the nominee if they're willing to accept the nomination and go to vote.
Perfect. All righty. Well, does anybody want to make a nomination for chair?
I nominate Luis as chair.
Okay.
And then I second.
All righty. Perfect. And then do we still vote, or?
Yes, you accept.
Oh, yes. Yes, I do.
Yes, take the vote, please.
Board Member Vega? We have too many microphones on. We need to turn them off, please. Thank you. Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Thank you. Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Thank you. Board Member Kaiser?
Yes.
Thank you. Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Thank you. Board Member Acosta?
Yes.
And Board Member Guerrero?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. Well, that solves one of the seats. Now we need to nominate someone for vice chair. Would anybody like to make a nomination for vice chair?
I nominate Scott.
I second.
Thank you. All right, perfect.
I am willing.
Perfect. Then we got to vote then.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Acosta?
Yes.
Chair Guerrero?
Yes. All righty, awesome. Well, that was quick. Now, we don't have any postponements, so we're going to skip that.
Mr. Chair, one
yes.
point of order. Because Commissioner Kaiser was secretary, now that
oh, okay. Well, now we got to. Okay,
vacant.
never mind. Scratch that. We need to nominate a secretary. Any of the commissioners want to nominate someone as a secretary?
I'll return the favor and nominate Commissioner Vega.
That sounds great.
Is it because I'm a woman?
Oh.
I'll
Absolutely
second.
not.
I accept.
All right, perfect. Then let's vote.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Acosta?
Yes.
Chair Guerrero?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. I think, is that it? We got all of it? Perfect. All right, excellent. Then up next, we have public participation. This is if anybody has anything they would like to share that is not in the agenda. Do we have anybody in the public that would like to come up and speak on something that is not in the agenda? No? All right, then that's fine. Now, we don't have anything on the consent agenda today either. There is a request, though, and I'll need a vote from my colleagues to move item number 10 before we do old business. Would anybody like to make a motion for that?
I make a motion to move item number 10.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All right, perfect. Do we need a vote for that?
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Acosta?
Yes.
Chair Guerrero?
Yes.
Thank you.
Perfect. Then in that case, we're going to move on to item number 10, which is the Realize Las Cruces Development Code update. Do we have anybody from either the city staff or one of the presenters?
Yes, Chair, this is Nicholas for the record.
Yes.
Catherine will do an introduction, and then we'll have our consultant from Friesen Nichols do our presentation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the P&Z. This is something that I think we're all really familiar with. We're working on the code rewrite for Realize Las Cruces. Those are all of our development codes, zoning, subdivision signs, development standards, things of that nature. And we're just doing one of our regular updates to let you know where we are in the process, where we're going. And we have our consultants from Friesen Nichols here to give you a small presentation. And with that, I will go ahead and open that. And I will turn it over to Erica Craycraft.
Good evening, members of the commission. Again, my name is Erica Craycraft with Friesen Nichols, joining you today with a brief update on the development code revision. Joining me today is Don Warwick and Karen Perez, also with Friesen Nichols, and other members of our team who you may see at a different meeting are Fred Lopez from Quantum Engineering and local attorney Dana Kyle. Today, I would like to share with you a reminder of our process and give you an update on our current status, and also preview our upcoming next steps and plans for community engagement. And lastly, I'd be happy to take any questions or comments that you may have. First, looking at our process and generally our scope, the items that you see here are the current sections of your development code that we are reviewing in this process. On the left side, you see the items that are major reviews. Those are your zoning map, subdivision regulations, design standards, which are things like landscaping and parking requirements, drainage and flood control, and signs. We have about a 2-year process that is structured into 3 phases. And our first phase was what we call the Diagnostic Evaluation. This was a period of about 6 months that started last spring. During that time, we reviewed your existing plans that you had in place, like the Elevate Las Cruces Comprehensive Plan, the Active Transportation Plan, Parks Master Plan, and others. We also took that time to review your existing codes that you have in place today. We had a virtual open house where we invited open-ended community input through a website that is actually still available if anyone would like to participate at realizelascruces.com. And also during that time, we conducted a series of interviews with folks who we considered to be frequent code users. So that included members of the City Council and P&Z who were seated at that time, members of the local development community, several community organizations, and others during that time to get an understanding of what works well, what maybe doesn't work well, what we should be considering through this update. That informed us as we have moved into our current phase, phase 2, which is actually drafting the code content. We're working very closely with your city staff through this phase, and we are about 2/3 of the way through phase 2. Looking ahead to phase 3, which we envision being early next year, that will be several months dedicated to refining the final document. Once we have a complete draft that's ready for public review, that will go through a refinement process at that time. As I mentioned, we are currently in phase 2. You can see on the right side the new primary sections that the code will be organized by. For each of those sections, we prepare a draft, we being the consultant team. We share that with your city staff. They review it, they share their comments with us, and we make revisions to that section. We repeat that process until the draft is ready to move forward. We're currently focusing on the design standards and also on the zoning. The first 2 sections that you see here, general provisions and subdivision regulations, we have an initial draft of those that is actually available on the website, realizelascruces.com, on the documents page. If anyone would like to view those initial drafts, they are available. Also, there's a brief video about 5 minutes long with each of those sections that gives you an overview about what the purpose of this section is and also some key things to note about that section. These are posted on the website mainly for a transparency purpose. We aren't necessarily asking for any public input on these drafts at this time, but they are available if anyone would like to look at them. As we're drafting these sections, we're looking frequently back to your existing plans, especially the Elevate plan. When the city prepared that plan, there was a very robust community engagement process with a lot of different local groups and stakeholders involved in that process that helped to establish that vision in the plan. The plan has about 500 different recommendations that relate to partially the development code, but also capital improvements, other studies that may be required, or general policies. So we have been looking especially at the items related to the development code. We took those items, about 200 of them, and categorized them in this table that you see here, just a snippet of. But this is our working list as we're working through the development code, where we can keep track of all of the items that Elevate's policy framework recommended, so we can be sure that we are addressing the plan's recommendations. In terms of the plan's physical framework, we're also incorporating that into the code update by looking especially at the place types and overlay place types. You'll see that those relate to the zoning districts and also to some of the design standards like the roadway design or the landscaping. Those frequently refer back to the place types that came out of the plan. In addition to plan implementation, we're also looking at ways that we can simplify and streamline the document so it's easier to understand. It is a very technical document, so we are trying to use tables and flowcharts as much as possible to make sure that everyone can understand the requirements. Looking ahead at our next steps and plans for community engagement, you may be aware that there's a technical advisory committee that has started meeting. They were appointed by the mayor and the council, and there are 15 members who are representatives of the local development community, various community organizations, also several professors and other academics who are involved in that committee. It is a city staff-led initiative. Your Assistant City Manager, Eric Enriquez, is the primary staff point of contact for that committee. The committee is reviewing draft sections for preliminary feedback at this time. The sections that they're reviewing are also available on the website at the location I mentioned earlier in case anyone would like to review. That content is available for everyone. But again, we're not necessarily asking for community-wide input until we have that more polished, complete draft at the beginning of the year. So our next steps, we will continue to work with city staff as we have been doing to refine the draft code and get a complete draft ready. City staff will continue working with that technical advisory committee to get any preliminary feedback to help us be informed as we're preparing this initial draft. Once we have that polished draft ready, we'll bring it back to the Planning and Zoning Commission and to City Council for your review and to let us know if you see any issues or anything else that you would like to be addressed before we go out for the formal public involvement and input process. Once we have that green light from you all, we'll start an open house event for additional community feedback on that complete draft. That open house event we envision occurring probably in early spring of next year. And we envision that as being a 2-evening event where it would be the same event either evening, just to allow more opportunities for folks to attend that in person if they would like. And all of our public engagement activities, we like to start with an educational component at the beginning. So everyone has a background and understanding of what the purpose of the code is and how it would apply to them. So they have the background that they need to be able to provide meaningful input. At that meeting, we'll also share highlights of the draft once it is completed. That would be something like a top 20 things to know about the draft code. At the meeting, we'll have opportunities for feedback from the community, and then that feedback period will also extend for a time after the open house event. So if someone came to that event and that was their first time learning anything about the development code, they would have the background knowledge presented to them at that meeting. They could have some time to go home and review the draft and share their comments with us later. They don't have to necessarily have it that evening. And we would also like to host some one-on-one discussions that can either be at the event or could be held separately. But we envision those being a sit-down conversation with anyone who is a property owner or a business owner, someone who is interested or concerned about how the code might apply to them. So we could sit down with them, look up their individual address, and be able to talk with them about how the existing code applies and how the new one will be different. And then also, in addition to the in-person event, we would like to have a virtual alternative that's available for a period of time as well, if somebody prefers to participate online rather than in person. I mentioned during phase 1 that we had a virtual open house. That is the screenshot that you see here. It is still available at this time. If anyone wanted to go share any open-ended comments, they can feel free to do so. Next, also during that public engagement period, all of the code users that I mentioned that we interviewed during phase 1, we would like to circle back with them again at this point and make sure that we kind of close that feedback loop, that we incorporated their comments and their concerns were addressed. This is just a reminder of who those code users were that we interviewed back during phase 1. So we will invite all of these folks to join us again once we have a complete draft and review any of their additional comments or questions. Once we have that input through the open house and also for the code user interviews, we'll bring that input back to you all at the P&Z and to City Council. And in addition to presenting the input, we'll also be presenting proposed revisions that we would recommend based on what we heard at the community input. So we'll present that for your feedback and direction. Once we have incorporated that public input into our drafts, then at that time we would move forward with the official formal adoption meetings and public hearings that would go along with that. So that concludes my presentation. I would be happy to take any questions or comments that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Do we have any questions from the commission? Seeing none, why don't we move to public comment? Or I think we, yeah. Does anybody from the public have any questions that they would like to ask?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Nicholas for the record. I would just make a brief comment to the commission. This is a very important study. We kept hearing the word on your presentation, a very informative presentation. Thank you for that. But you kept hearing the word code. And so this is this will be a code. This will be part of the laws that we use to gauge our zoning and our land development. It is in concert with the Elevate Las Cruces Comprehensive Plan. This particular code had not been updated or revised for a number of years, but once we had adopted the Elevate Comprehensive Plan, we recognized the necessity to update the land development or the zoning code to work in concert with that. So it'll be brought to you. We're about halfway through, are we, with the consultancy and developing this, but it's going to be very well vetted to both Council, the Planning Zoning Commission, and to the public. And we'll look forward to new developments. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you so much. You know, I remember hearing that the code has not been updated since, I believe, 2001. I may or may not be correct, but it's been a number of years, and as we all know, the city has grown and a lot has changed, and of course now we have the new comprehensive plan, so I'm excited to see how this is going to fit well with the city. Just one comment real quick. I did notice in your presentation there was something for like virtual alternative for 2 weeks. Could you maybe explain a little bit more what that would look like?
Sure. It could take a variety of forms. We use one of the tools, was the screenshot that I showed with the colorful boxes. That's more the open-ended input. For a community engagement at a later point, it would likely take the form of a series of informational videos, so everyone can have the background knowledge and the highlights of the drafts as well, and also some type of a more interactive survey.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. I think that's a great idea. If we learned anything from the pandemic is that, you know, people want to participate. They may not always be able to be in person, so thank you for doing that. Does anybody else have any other comments before we move on? No? Then thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, there was somebody had raised their hand. I'm sorry, I did not see you. Yeah, would you like to come up and make a comment? All right, perfect. My first swear-in. So before you make your comment, I do need to swear you in. First of all, could we get your name?
Gary Gurley.
All righty, and do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Well, it's a question more than a testimony.
Oh, okay, that's okay. We'll give you 3 minutes, and go ahead.
Okay, I just want to know what...
Oh, you might need to speak a little bit closer to the mic.
I wanted to know what the bearing was on all of these changes you're going to make to the various cases that you have for zoning changes, as applies to the much larger change that is going to take place in May of next year, and why have all of these minor changes on a periodic basis, and why not wait for the larger change to take place in May and base your decisions on zoning changes on the adjustments that you make, the final adjustments that you make in May?
That is a great question. Somebody from city staff want to take that?
Larry? I'd be happy to answer. My name is Catherine. I'm senior planner with the department. So there was no type of moratorium that was placed on the ability for people to proceed with zone changes until this code was adopted. So that allows people who perhaps want to develop or who have a property perhaps that's not in conformance and they want to get a zone change so that they can do maybe a little bit more with their property, they can do that. So they're allowed to go through the process under our current code so they can utilize their property or make plans to move forward in the future. But at this point in time, the city elected to not halt development or zone changes moving forward until that code was adopted. And that's pretty typical, that the city would continue to allow people to proceed with their development plans. Does that answer your question?
Well, how do you know that you're not going to run into a conflict where you make a decision now which will be in conflict with your final changes?
So that's also a really good question. So when we make recommendations involving zone changes, we're basing it on our current comprehensive plan and some of the guidance that particular plan provides us. That plan was adopted approximately 2 years ago, and of course, the code that we're working on now is also intended to implement that plan. So they should be in alignment. However, there are instances where maybe there's some things that don't quite jive, where something may be considered non-conforming moving forward. There are provisions in the code that protect those uses that were made legal under one code but may have some illegality in a new code. We call it non-conforming, and they're allowed to continue that. They won't be penalized for that.
Okay, well, that was my main question.
All righty, well, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Catherine, for answering that. And thank you so much to the representative. We look forward to keep working with you. All right, well, we're going to move on to new business. So first of all, could I get a motion to hear item 9.1?
Make a motion to hear item 9.1.
Second.
All right.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Acosta?
Yes.
Chair Guerrero?
Yes. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Vincent Benegas, interim planner for the record, presenting the case before you, case 22-005-00073. It is a rezoning proposal for property that's located at 5056 Carter Drive, currently zoned UR, which is an 81 designation called Urban Ranch. And they're seeking to rezone the property to residential estates mobile. That designation is a legitimate zoning district in the 2001 zoning code. Just to give you a little background on some of those zoning districts that may no longer be in the current code, when the US 70 annexation took in most of the eastern portion of the city. There were a lot of properties out there that had uses that were not very typical elsewhere in the city, and the city decided to create some additional zoning districts at that time under the 81 zoning code in order to accommodate the uses. The UR zone was one of them, but through the rewrite of the rewrite of the zoning code resulting in the 2001 code, it no longer exists. The property is roughly 1.163 acres in size. The UR designation under that previous code allowed for a minimum lot size of 1 acre. And one of the unique characteristics, it also allowed the keeping of small and large animals in a semi-rural atmosphere. That was the purpose and intent of that zone. So at the present time, it is a defunct zoning designation. It is not considered non-conforming, very much like what was just mentioned for that gentleman's question. And so in order to allow future development on the property or changes to the property that would require permits, things of that nature, they have to be brought into compliance. And that would require what we used to call a conversion zone, taking a look at what's on the property and trying to match it up as best we can with some of the existing designations in the 2001 zoning code as amended. The property sits within the suburban neighborhood place type pursuant to the Elevate Las Cruces Comprehensive Plan, and as mentioned previously in some of the other cases, that allows for a character, land use character that considers low to moderate density residential uses with some areas or intermixed with some areas of commercial use. The property at the present time is vacant, predominantly vacant. There has been some development in context to some fencing that was placed on the property. The property does show at present time some fencing that is located along at least one side of the property line, the back, and then a portion of the other side. And there is some fenced-in storage that has taken place there. The applicant, in preparation of this case, it was brought to our staff's attention that this had occurred, and we started receiving quite a bit of phone calls on the matter. And I've been in contact with the applicant's representative to discuss that. And certainly if they're utilizing some of the equipment and the structures in there to store equipment for the construction of a home that they have applied for. It is under review. It's gone through the review process and is pending the outcome of a zone change to bring about compliance with zoning designations. So if they do that, then it's okay. If it's being used for some other purpose, for property, storage material that is used for property beyond this subject parcel, then there's some issues and other considerations that have to be made. So the applicant's representative is aware of that. The zoning for the area is identified as follows. You have the subject property outlined in red. And adjacent to that, you still have several properties that are in the non-conforming UR designated zoning district. And the reason that could have occurred is first and foremost, the city did take upon itself the process of conversion of zoning districts for properties throughout the city, but we also encourage property owners to come forward and help us out, help identify the properties that no longer had a designation that was subject to the 2001 code. And in certain instances, obviously we had some gaps and we didn't cover the entire city. But also, as part of our process, staff process, whenever we engaged property owners to take on that conversion process, if they didn't want to participate, they opted out. And so I'm not quite sure what the scenario is here with several of the properties being UR, but basically all those UR properties will at some point in time need to be brought into compliance. The one in question this evening is this one outlined in red, identified as the subject property. So you do have some REM zoning, which is what is being proposed this evening. Directly south, you certainly have a substantial amount on the west of the subject property. But you have Carter Drive, which provides the immediate access to the subject property, and some of the other roadways are somewhat improved and some are partially improved. I know Cortez has some right-of-way issues and some improvement issues that are still pending in terms of meeting current code. But nonetheless, this is the zoning that you see in the immediate area. The EE zoning designation is in equestrian estates zoning district. It too allows the keeping of small and large animals. It has a 1 acre minimum lot size. And the only difference between EE and the REM designation is that the REM, and for that matter, I should say the UR designation, the REM allows for mobile homes, but in this case, the building permit that I referenced already is seeking to do a site-built home, not a mobile home. So this is the aerial map for the subject property. You can see as of when this was taken, the property was undeveloped. There were no fences, fenced-in storage identified. Surrounding it, you do have several properties that have site-built construction and a few that still have mobile home placement upon them. But clear majority of the properties are a fairly large lot, and some, although not all, some do have the keeping of small animals and large animals to this date. So once again, the proposal is to change the zoning from UR to REM, and this facilitates the construction of a site-built home, not a mobile home, on the subject property. And I want to clarify that because one of the citizens, the property owners out in that area called and was rather concerned that it would allow mobile homes. This is the site plan that was submitted for the residential construction permit. I used it just to show you the expanse of the property itself. It's fairly large. Carter Drive is along this edge of the site plan, so they will be taking immediate access off of Carter Drive. The building itself will sit behind the required 25-foot setback. And it's my understanding that the fenced-in storage area is back in this area. This is just a couple of photos showing that. Again, the placement of the fencing, fenced-in storage area, and some of the equipment trailers that are placed back there. A little different angle. There will have to be some modification of the fencing. The first 25 feet is within the required front yard, and unless they receive a variance for that, it'll have to come down to 4 feet in height. But that's really a separate issue as it pertains to the zone change. So in terms of our analysis from a staff perspective, there was no health, safety, or welfare issues that were identified by reviewing staff. Staff did find that the zoning district that was proposed is compatible with the proposed use in the surrounding neighborhood, certainly based on what I showed in terms of zoning and the aerial. The property is within the suburban place type, as per Elevate Las Cruces, and is consistent with the character that's defined therein. The UR-EM comparison in terms of zoning development characteristics is similar. The REM allows for a smaller lot size, half-acre minimum, versus the 1 acre for the UR, the defunct UR. The REM allows mobile home, but again, they're looking to build site-built, and the UR a required site-built and manufactured home only. All other standards are the same. So the REM was selected, and we feel that it's compatible with those REM zones in the immediate area. In terms of public notice and input, we carried that out pursuant to code. I think early this month, on the 5th of this month, the letters went out. And as indicated, the staff did not receive calls about the zoning per se. We received calls about the fencing and the fenced-in storage. The one letter or email that I did receive late, which was forwarded to you for your consideration, talked about the mobile home placement or the possibility. I don't think that's an issue given what permit has been submitted and gone through review at this point in time, but certainly if you feel it necessary to apply a condition, you could do so. That would require manufactured home, site-built home only. So that's what we have in terms of input. So staff recommendation regarding this case is approval, and it's based on the following findings. For one, the property's existing zoning is non-conforming. It no longer exists in our 2001 code, and certainly prior to any development, we have to bring the zoning district into compliance. Staff has found the REM zoning district that was requested to be compatible with the area, and it certainly fits the intentions of the property owner in terms of future improvement. The property is also within the suburban neighborhood place type, again characterized by low to moderate residential density. This certainly fits that bill. And several goals, policies, and actions that are identified in Elevate Las Cruces. We find that the request is compatible with that. There's certainly support in that document for the request. And we also find that it meets the purpose and intent of the 2001 zoning code and the criteria for decisions found in the municipal code. So the surrounding area is also developed as large lot. REM doesn't detract from that. And so, again, yet another finding that supports the request. So your options this evening is to vote yes and approve the request. You can vote no and deny it. Please provide any findings that staff has not identified and that we have provided those in support of the request. You could vote yes with any conditions you feel are appropriate, or you can vote to table. And that concludes staff's presentation, Mr. Chairman. I believe we have the representative for the property owner in attendance, and either he or I can answer any questions you may have.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, if we could have the representative is available. Oh, perfect, come forward. All right, before we get started, I believe I do need to swear you in. What's your name?
Anton Magallanes.
And do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, but nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
All right, perfect, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, so my name is Anton Magallanes. I'm with Moy Surveying, and we are representing the owner of the property. Unfortunately, I did recommend that they come today, but they were out of town celebrating a birthday. So he said if there's any questions, of course, I needed to relay to him. He'd be happy to answer. We did meet with the during our pre-application process prior to the zone change, we discussed with staff the opportunity for urban ranch, EE versus REM. After talking with staff and looking at surrounding properties, we did determine REM was the most applicable, given what their intentions were, which is a site-built home, as mentioned with the permit, along with just alignment with what the lot looks like and what they're wanting to do relative to what also is happening in the surrounding area. I've been through this process before where we're taking a debunked zone designation and putting it into conformance, and so I do appreciate the conversion. However, this property with the current owner would have never been able to be allowed to utilize that conversion given the conversion process ended prior to them purchasing the lot. So because now any zone change, of course, goes through this process, we're at the mercy of just having to get that zone designation changed so that he can move forward and, of course, build his home. They plan to live there. When I did survey the property prior to even submitting the zone change, I was actually going to just locate the property corners because there is an easement that runs there, and so they wanted to make sure and build and not obviously encroach in that easement. And it was at that point that they then applied for the building permit and were told, hey, you can't actually build on it yet because of the zone designation. At that time, there was a chain link fence already there along with the wire fence that is on the east boundary of the property. Since then, they have in fact erected via a permit after the fact with the fence that is in place. And I did talk to the applicant after addressing concerns that the public had as to what the items were that were on the lot. And they have mobilized some of their equipment to start to erect the house once we get the go-ahead with the zone change. They are custom home builders. So their business personally, of course, is custom home building. However, they've just mobilized their equipment to, in fact, be able to build their house once this designation, if this designation is approved. The storage containers are Connex boxes because the owner currently is selling his house, and so his personal belongings are within the storage Connex boxes that are there. So, of course, the intent would be that all the insides of that Connex box would be, of course, furnishing the home. And then there were also concerns regarding the RV units, but those are just personal fifth wheels that the owner has. They're not used for construction purposes or anything like that. They're just personal items that they've placed there for the time being. So, given the process and what we have to go through, we're just seeking the REM designation so that we can move forward and let them have the ability to get their permit approved and build their home.
All right, well, thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the commission? No, seeing none, we'll move to public comment. Do we have any members? And thank you so much. Do we have any members from the public that would like to make a comment on this? Doesn't look like we do, so in that case, let's go ahead and make a vote.
I need a motion and a second first, please.
My apologies, sorry.
I make a motion to approve 9.1.
A second?
All right, excellent.
Board Member Vega?
I vote to approve based on staff recommendation, and it meets Elevate Las Cruces.
Board Member Smith?
I vote to approve based on staff recommendation and consistency with purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes, based on staff recommendation and consistency with Elevate Las Cruces.
Board Member Bennett?
I vote to approve based on staff recommendation. This meets neighborhood character and compatibility as well as Elevate Las Cruces.
Board Member Acosta?
I vote yes based off of staff recommendation.
Chair Guerrero?
As well, vote yes based on staff recommendation and meeting Elevate Las Cruces. All right, perfect. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item in our agenda, we have 9.2, which is also a zone change. Could I get a motion and a second?
Make a motion to hear item 9.2.
Thank you.
Commissioner Smith, I second.
All righty, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Vincent Benegas again, presenting case 22-ZO 05-00084. It is a zone change, yet another conversion type zone change from A2 to C3 involving property located at 3400 Baton Memorial East. Current conditions are as follows. The property is approximately 17.07 acres in size. As indicated, it is A2. A2 is or was our agricultural district zoning designation as part of the 81 code. Again, when the 2001 code came into effect, A2 was no longer part of it. So back in the day, A2 was applied to properties that were either agricultural in nature in terms of land use, but quite often it was used as a placeholder when annexations occurred and the property owner did not know exactly what designation they wished to proceed with. oftentimes the A2 zone was utilized for kind of a reservation of future considerations for zoning district. So the current zoning of A2 is defunct. As indicated, it is non-conforming, and we do need to seek out a conversion to an appropriate designation pursuant to the 2001 code. In this case, the property is located in a regional commercial place type that is identified as part of the Elevate Las Cruces Comprehensive Plan. And just to give you a little idea as to the character of that place type, it seeks to allow large retail and professional office type service uses that require a large draw or typically have a large draw in terms of customer base. The property itself is predominantly vacant. There is a single-family dwelling on site built back in 1949. I don't believe it's occupied at the present time. It doesn't look like it is. It looks like there's some maintenance that is needed. So I believe, again, clearly the majority of the acreage is vacant, certainly an underutilized parcel. So the Highway 70 annexation back in 1967 brought the parcel in. It is outside the North Rise Business Park Development Plan. I believe in your packet, I may have misspoke. It is literally one parcel outside the boundary of that business park development plan. I think I said it was within, but I have confirmed it is outside. It is part of the MBSK subdivision, and there was a replat that sought to add a little bit of acreage at the apex of the access point along North Rise Drive, and that apex was widened to approximately 70 feet if memory serves. That apex location is right where this cursor is pointing to. That's where the replat came into play. But the subject property is outlined in red here. And you can see that there's a few other A2 properties immediately west of the subject property, and there's certainly several others located south of the property and south of North Rise Drive. You do have other zoning designations in the immediate vicinity, several of which are commercial in nature. You do have some C3C zoning. You do have some C2C further north across Baton Memorial and the highway. And a lot of these PUD designated parcels or zone parcels have an underlying zoning district for commercial uses. So quite a bit of commercial that certainly ties in and supports the regional commercial place type that's mentioned in Elevate. So you do have this aerial showing the property. It is right underneath the word subject where the single-family home currently sits. Otherwise, it is vacant. You do have an access point off of Baton Memorial, and you will have access point off of North Rise Drive. As it relates to any future development, I'm sure from the perspective of Baton Memorial, you will have New Mexico Department of Transportation involved in the review of any permit, as well as city staff, of course. But beyond that, a lot of the area surrounding the subject property, at least immediately east and west, is predominantly vacant as well. You do have some, I believe it's Domino's up in this corner of Baton Memorial and Roadrunner Parkway. You have a large office complex. You do have on the south side of North Rise, near the intersection of North Rise and Roadrunner, you have some, I believe it's the residential care facility, and further south you do have some multifamily apartments. So again, uses that are consistent with Elevate. So the proposal before us is to rezone the property from A2 to C3, C3 being the commercial high-intensity zone within our 2001 code. It's certainly a reasonable request given the Elevate Las Cruces place type, the parcel size, and the physical location of the property. No development proposal was identified as part of the application packet for this request, so staff is unaware of what the ultimate intention is in terms of build-out. So from a reviewing perspective, staff didn't find any considerable issues to be addressed at this point in time. I'm sure we will reserve that for an actual application for development so that we can better review what is requested with development code. So here's a couple of photos. This is looking north from Northrise Drive. The single-family home is shown here in the background up on the hill. It is a very somewhat hilly property, changing elevation from the Baton Memorial side down to Northrise side fairly considerably. This is looking south. Again, the single-family dwelling here. You can see the access point almost on the far right of the photo. It's a little driveway that comes from Baton Memorial into the property. Otherwise, you have this wall along Baton Memorial that restricts access. So there were no health, safety, or welfare issues identified by staff. We do find that the requested zoning of C3 is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. It's certainly compatible with the regional commercial place type as per Elevate Las Cruces. And we find that several goals, policies, and actions support the request. It speaks to developing vacant land, creating employment opportunities, job housing, balance, and growing businesses, et cetera. Those are some of the key themes of policy that supports the request. So in terms of public notice, notice was made pursuant to current code. Again, early in the month, letters were sent out. On this particular case, staff has not received any input to date. And here we are. Staff's recommendation is approval based on the following findings. The property has non-conforming zoning, and said zoning needs to be brought into compliance in order to allow further development on site. The C3 is considered to be the most appropriate zoning designation given the location, surrounding area, roadway access, and lot size. The area certainly seems to be geared towards drawing from a large population base, and so it's consistent with that place type as mentioned. I indicated that several goals and policies supported the request. It meets the purpose and intent of the 2001 Las Cruces zoning code as amended, and it meets the criteria for decisions found in the municipal code. So the surrounding area already has a variety of uses and zoning districts that are certainly consistent with that C3 zoning district. So your options this evening is to vote yes and approve the request, vote no and deny. You can vote yes with conditions or vote to table. And I believe, Mr. Chairman, that the property owner and or representative is in the audience, and so again, either the individual or myself can answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, do we have the either owner or representative in the audience? Yeah, sure, if you would come up. Just watch your step there. All right, perfect. First of all, could we get your first and last name?
John Heck, H-E-C-K.
All righty, thank you. And do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth until under penalty of law?
Absolutely.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
Any questions that you would have about the property, I'll be glad to answer.
Sure, all right. Well, does anybody have any questions from the property? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Do you have any idea what you're looking to put there, commercially wise, or?
The existing house has been vacant for about 7 years and been ransacked by various and assorted different people in and out of the property. It has broken windows. They tore out most of the copper pipe and electrical. I recently replaced the roof on it, which was incredibly antiquated, with shake shingles, which are no longer allowed. I'm a general contractor. This is basically what I do, is find older properties and fix them up and turn them somehow. I do have a client out of Washington State that's very interested in purchasing this house if I remodel it, bring it up to code, and they're going to use it as an Airbnb. The rest of the property, I don't know what will happen with it at this point in time.
Yeah, thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions? Yeah, Commissioner Kaiser?
This is actually a question for staff. I noticed in the staff report, attachment 3, the department review comments, it still has under several departments, the status is listed as in process. I just haven't seen that before, so I'm not sure if there's a significance there.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kaiser, when I looked at that, that was indeed the status by a few of the reviewing departments. They were having difficulty locating the property. There was a legal description or meets and bounds description, and so I provided them the specific location, cleared it up, and they didn't have any issues beyond that.
All righty, thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for either staff or the owner? Well, in that case, we're going to move on to comments from the public. Would anybody in the public like to speak about this specific case? Does not look like it. So in that case, could I get a motion to approve this case?
I'll make a motion to approve item 9.2.
I second.
All right.
Board Member Vega?
I vote to approve based on site visit, and it meets the zoning code updates.
Board Member Smith?
I vote yes based on site visit and staff recommendation.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes, based on staff recommendation and consistency with Elevate Las Cruces.
Board Member Bennett?
I vote to approve based on staff recommendation. This meets Elevate Las Cruces and the municipal code.
Board Member Acosta?
I vote yes based off staff recommendation and compliance with the Elevate Las Cruces Comprehensive Plan.
Chair Guerrero?
Yeah, I vote yes, also based on staff recommendations, site visit, and compliance with Elevate Las Cruces. Perfect. Well, we have a motion that passed. Thank you very much. We are going to move on to the next item in the agenda, which is item 9.3, which is also a zone change. Could I get a motion from the commission?
I'll make a motion to hear item 9.3.
A second?
All right.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Acosta?
Yes.
Chair Guerrero?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. Go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commission. My name is John Castillo. I'm with the City of Las Cruces as a planner. Today we're going to be discussing 2505 Missouri Avenue. It is a zone change. Currently the property is 0.264 acres, and it's located at the corner of Missouri and Don Roser. The address is 2505 Missouri. Through the MPO and Elevate Las Cruces future thoroughfare plans, it's been labeled as a major arterial roadway. Currently, it is a built lot. It has an existing commercial building. The property is currently zoned C1. At this time, the property is considered a non-conforming use. This is because with the C1 zoning, the maximum building gross floor area, square footage, is limited to 2,500 square feet. As the building was built in 1977, it was built to 3,198 square feet. Back in the 1981 code, the maximum building gross floor area for the C1 zoning was 3,000 square feet. So today, we're just bringing the property into compliance and removing the maximum gross floor. Located here is the zoning that shows that it is C1. Here's an aerial image of the existing property. So today's proposal is going to be to rezone the subject property from C1 to C2, which is our commercial medium intensity zoning district. It realigns the existing uses to the current 2001 Las Cruces zoning code as amended, and it is also compatible for subject property and neighborhood. This would also eliminate the property's non-conforming uses in regards to the maximum building square footage. It has received approval from all reviewing staff. As you can see, here are some images of the building, and then looking north or west and eastbound on Missouri. So there are no health, safety, or welfare issues identified by staff. The Z2 zoning district provides compatibility with existing uses and surrounding neighborhood. The property is located within the urban place type as per Elevate Las Cruces. In addition to that, the support would bring a long economic growth, and it also realigns the existing zoning districts. At the time, notice was sent out to surrounding properties with earlier in the month. Staff did receive one phone call that was tied to the special use permit that was also a part of this property. There may have been some confusion at that time because the notice letters tend to look a little bit similar. So staff has recommended approval based on the following findings: that it's located along a principal arterial roadway, where medium to high intensity zoning such as the proposed C2 is encouraged. It will allow for an expansion of existing businesses, increase employment, increase the value of the subject property. Based upon staff's analysis, the proposal and the proposed zone change requests meet the intent of Elevate Las Cruces. It's also compatible with the adjacent zoning districts and uses. It also meets the purpose and intent outlined in section 38-2 of the zoning code and fulfills the Las Cruces Municipal Code section 2-382. Today, your options are to vote yes for approval, vote no to deny, vote yes with conditions, or vote to table.
All right, thank you. Do we have anybody representing the property?
We do have the representative here today as well.
Okay, and would the representative like to come up and speak? You don't have to, but totally up to you. All right, perfect. Then let's move on. Do we have any questions from the commission? Yeah, Commissioner Vega?
This is just more of like a clarifying question from staff. So we heard about this, I think it was the last meeting or one before. So just for my own knowledge, why did we have to go through that first process of getting this, getting the permitting for the store, and then now adding the space that already existed within it?
So at the time that the applicant came in during one of our pre-application meetings, we did not actually know the square footage of the building, so we were just under the assumption that it was compliant. It wasn't until later on through the special use permit process that we realized the property was non-conforming.
Thank you.
And Vincent has more to add to that.
If I may, Commissioner Vega, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Vega, at the time we did have some questions regarding the square footage. The square footage and use for the proposed cannabis retail component was going to meet the C1 zoning designation. In talking with the property owner or the applicant, they wanted to utilize the whole building. So that's when we started conversations with them to seek a zone change from C1 to C2. But my understanding in communication with the business owner and the applicant is at no time did it become an illegal activity in terms of square footage.
All right, thank you very much for that. Does anybody else have any questions? Commissioner Kaiser, go ahead.
So along those lines, if I remember correctly, I believe that previous item before us, it was approved based on a condition that they would not exceed, I think it was 2,500 square feet. How would this, application tonight affect that condition, if I am indeed correct?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Kaiser, I believe that we would have to look into it a little bit further, but I believe it wouldn't make the condition a requirement anymore.
So this would negate that condition, is what you're saying?
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. Does anybody else have any more questions? I believe this was the one I missed a couple of months ago, so I don't have any questions either. Do we have any comments from the public at the moment? Well, seeing that there's no comments, could I get a motion to approve this case?
I make a motion to approve 9.3.
A second.
All right.
Board Member Vega?
I vote to approve based on site visit and the zone change supports economic growth.
Board Member Smith?
I vote to approve based on site visit and staff recommendation.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes, based on staff recommendation and consistency with Elevate Las Cruces.
Board Member Bennett?
I vote to approve based on site survey, staff recommendation, as well as meeting the purpose and intent of the code.
Board Member Acosta?
I vote yes to approve based on staff recommendation.
Chair Guerrero?
I vote yes as well based on staff recommendation and being compliant with Elevate Las Cruces. We have a motion that passed. Moving on to the next agenda item, we have 9.4, which is a special use permit. Could I get a motion to hear this case from the commission?
Make a motion to approve 9.4.
I second.
All right, excellent. Let's take it to a vote.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Acosta?
Yes.
Chair Guerrero?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Vincent Benegas, Interim Planner for the record, presenting this evening's case regarding 22Z01000071. It is a special use permit request involving a group child care home for property located at 1534 Santa Tomas Street. So the current conditions are as follows. The property and property immediately surrounding the subject location is all zoned R1A. That's our medium density, a single family density residential district in our 2001 zoning code. The property is located within Legends West North 2B subdivision. Again, all the property is R1A within that subdivision. The property is 0.144 acres in size, and it is currently operating a family child care home, not a group child care home, on the site, and they've been doing so for approximately 2 years. Elsewhere, they've been operating it as well for a little longer than that. But at present, they have 5 children. They're authorized to have 6. And it's the husband and wife who serve as the employees for the operation. The property itself has direct access off of Santa Tomas Street. The zoning map is shown here. Santa Tomas is located along this side. Property is outlined in red, and R1A makes up all of the lots within that subdivision, primarily at least this phase of the subdivision is shown. Across the street on the west side, you have across the property on the west side, you have Roadrunner Lane. The city limit boundary, I don't know if you can tell, but there's a dash line that delineates the city limit boundary. And so anything further west of Roadrunner Lane is in the county. It's outside the city, but the zoning designation is identified as D1 and D2, and those are residential uses. The D2, I believe, allows a mobile home to be used as the dwelling. D2 allows a broader variety of residential uses, anything from site-built, manufactured, and mobile. And in this small corner, you have mobile home park type zoning. So rather antiquated aerial map. I apologize for that because there is quite a bit of development that has taken place, but nonetheless showing the property in question. 2 parcels down, you have a linkage, if you will, to a linear park system, and so this property is only developed in accordance with that linkage. Beyond that, it's residential uses. And again, some of the residential uses over here with mobile homes identified throughout. And then in terms of history, the house where the proposed use is to be located was built very recently in 2019. It meets all the code requirements, both in the zoning code and building code. It has received its certificate of occupancy. And the applicants have operated, as indicated previously, a family child care home since 2017, 2 years at the present location. And they are licensed by the state. State licensure is required for that use. And just so that you're aware, a family child care home has a minimum of 5 children and a maximum of 6. A group child care has beyond 6 up to 12. And that is exactly what they were proposing to do, is convert that family child care to a group child care home. They will require, of course, the licensure not only with the city, but also the state. The state has several requirements that need to be adhered to, and they will be conducting their review much like we are this evening. Ultimately, the use will have to follow all applicable regulations. So a couple of photos. This is the front of the property from Santa Tomas Street. It is looking west, and this is the property in question. You can see the gates on either side of the house, at least on this side of the house. This other one's kind of hidden from view. A site plan of the property, which was submitted at the time of building permit consideration, shows that the gates are located, or at least they are located more or less in the vicinity here as well as there. The entire rear yard has a wall of varying heights that's placed on the property line. And that is a good thing because for the safety of the children that will be at this facility, there will be outdoor recreation from time to time, and that wall and the gates will help with that security. The applicant has submitted this aerial photo. You can see this aerial photo much more recent, showing many homes in the surrounding properties. But this is the property in question. This was that linkage to a linear park system or path in the area. But they have identified the 2-car driveway here as a primary drop-off and pickup location for the children. They also have 3 on-street auto stalls for drop-off and pickup, and then 2 across the street. Staff, when we reviewed that, we're hoping that those 2 are used the least. Just from a safety perspective, we don't want kids running across or getting away from the parents if they're old enough. And so we feel that those along this side of Santa Tomas would be most beneficial for the use under consideration this evening. Something further about those parking stalls and drop-off pickup. The applicant has indicated that there will be a 3-hour window for drop-off and a 3-hour window for pickup. And they're looking to stagger those instances in 30-minute intervals, trying to reduce traffic in the surrounding development and to increase safety, at least from the context of vehicles and and children and parents, et cetera. So staff looked at that as a very good idea to help maintain compatibility with the neighborhood. So public notice for this was sent to surrounding properties again early this month. No specific input was received. I did receive a call, but they just indicated that they would be in attendance, so I'm not quite sure what the issue is regarding that call. But staff has a recommendation and findings of fact for you to consider. We are recommending conditional approval. We'd like for you to consider the condition that reads, the special use permit or SUP approval be contingent upon the group child care home licensure by the state of New Mexico at the subject location. And that's because both entities have to approve this request in order for it to be a green light, a go. And so it just kind of made sense to me to apply that condition. The findings of fact are as follows. The applicant, they have operated a family child care home since 2017, more or less, and approximately 2 years at the present location, so they're familiar with the process, and they have been in good standing to the best of staff's knowledge in terms of this use. They're familiar with the state requirements and the operational plans that they've submitted to help ensure neighborhood compatibility. The operational plans also help ensure child safety. The State of New Mexico Early Childhood Education and Care Department requires the licensure, so that's another step for consideration for this matter. So there's two sets of eyes, if you will, that will look at this. And child care has been determined to be a much needed use in and around our neighborhoods. It's in rather short supply if you talk to those who are in need of that type of care. So the subject property is also located in suburban place type, again pursuant to Elevate Las Cruces, so it's consistent with that. It Elevate supports the request. It encourages, for instance, the creation of small local businesses. It provides economic opportunities for underserved populations. It provides complete neighborhoods by incorporating a wide range of uses in those neighborhoods. It supports home employment opportunities and increases access, which is specifically identified in Elevate, to child care for single-parent households. So for sure, from the Elevate Las Cruces perspective, there's quite a bit of support for the request. It also meets the purpose and intent of the 2001 Las Cruces zoning code as amended, and the criteria for decisions found within our municipal code. Your options this evening are to vote yes and approve the request as stated by staff. You can vote no and deny it, come up with findings of fact to the contrary of those provided this evening by staff. You could vote yes with a condition as stipulated, or vote to table. And that concludes staff's presentation. I believe Ms. Roxana Sanchez, the applicant, is in attendance or has a representative in attendance that can help answer any questions you may have, and that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you so much. Yeah, do we have the either applicant or representative that would like to speak? Oh yeah, would you like to speak, or do you want? All right, no problem. Do we have any questions from the commission? Yes, Commissioner Smith.
Yes, I just have one question. You were going with this floor plan, the current footprint of the home, you're going from 5 or 6 children to 12. So that's you're doubling the number of children that are going to be in this residence. Are there any plans to somehow expand that space, whether it's convert the garage or to build anything addition in the future? Because that seems like a huge increase in number of kids in the current size of this home.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smith, at least from the perspective of data that was submitted as part of the application, it does not appear as if there was any intention to expand the envelope of the home. They are aware that there are certain space requirements for each kid pursuant to state law in terms of the process that will be examined, but there was nothing indicative of the need to expand at this point in time.
Okay, yeah, that was more my question, whether there's some type of state requirement as far as space for each child.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kaiser, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, an observation followed by a question. So in both the staff report and then in your presentation this evening, you made the comment about some safety concerns about children crossing St. Thomas Street from one side to the other. It seems to me that is the city's position, that this road is inherently unsafe for pedestrian crossings. And when looking at this image right here, it seems like there's a number of opportunities to address pedestrian safety concerns, just simply adding some crosswalks, maybe some curb extensions or other traffic calming measures to really benefit this type of business, which is sorely needed. And it seems that by making just small improvements like that would go a long way in encouraging people to perhaps walk their children around the corner, down the street to this business, and eliminate the need to be driving in an automobile to begin with. So I guess my question is the city considering any of that to support a business like this that's sorely needed in our neighborhoods to allow for alternative modes of transportation?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kaiser, staff is not aware of, in order to accomplish some of those things, first off, such as a crosswalk, et cetera, the applicant would have to meet with staff and traffic engineering, as an example, to see if it would be a prudent measure to apply crosswalk markings in this vicinity. But staff did not imply or tried, it wasn't the intent of staff to imply that Santa Tomas was a dangerous roadway. It's just a local roadway, much like any other local roadway elsewhere in the city in a residential neighborhood. It's just that from the perspective of where those two stalls are, the parent-child would have to cross, and it's a little deceiving. I think that's a 50-foot roadway, at least right-of-way, rather. And so you do have 19-foot wide stalls that are marked out there. So the idea was just to limit the use of those two stalls so that it increases safety. I think with the interval for pickup and drop-off that was being proposed by the applicant and the use of stalls 1 through 5, much of any safety concern that staff had regarding the use of the two stalls, 6 and 7, would greatly be reduced. And again, in terms of any other treatments, street treatments, that kind of thing to help facilitate the use, no discussions have been made at this point in time with the applicable departments.
Thank you for that. And I'll just say, I myself live on a street very similar to this, and people absolutely fly through the neighborhood because there's no reason for them not to slow down. So I guess my ask would be of staff, should the applicant and other neighbors raise this as a potential safety concern, that you work with them and the appropriate departments to find some reasonable accommodations to slow traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? I have just a question. This is just a general question. It's not at all the individual applicants, but so if we do approve it with the condition of them getting the different licensure from the state. What is the follow-up process with that the city does? Do you guys actually go and make sure that they got that before they move on to their operation? Do they have to come back to the city, or how does that usually work?
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, the process is to come here first for a special use permit approval. If they get that, they'll be working with the state to get their approval. But there's an added step from the city's perspective. They'll have to get a home occupation permit to actually conduct the business as indicated in this packet. And so there's an added measure that needs to take place, and it'll be at that time that staff will do the necessary inspections to make sure the ingress, egress to the home and all other measures are in place in accordance to city rules and regulations. And the state, I'm sure, will do the same from their perspective.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and I'm
Mr.
sure.
Chairman, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
Nicholas for the record. Just as Vince has mentioned about the home occupation, but this business, once it's converted from family to group, will require a business registration. When a business application is put in for that, then the building department inspector and the fire department inspects these facilities to enable them to issue that business registration. So there will be a review of the premises and the facility at the time of business registration issuance.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure the owners are going to make sure that everything gets done appropriately. But yeah, I was just, I've always been curious about that. Well, we will move on to questions from the public or comments from the public. Do we have anybody that would like to speak on this specific case? Seeing none, could I get a motion to approve this case?
I make a motion to approve 9.4 with conditions stipulated in the report.
I second.
All right, thank you.
Board Member Vega?
I vote to approve with conditions outlined by staff, including obtaining the state licensure and also based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Smith?
Vote yes to approve with conditions based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes, with conditions based on staff's recommendation and consistency with Elevate Las Cruces.
Board Member Bennett?
I vote to approve based on staff recommendation, Elevate Las Cruces, and the need in the community.
Board Member Acosta?
I vote to approve based on staff recommendation.
Chair Guerrero?
I as well vote to approve with the conditions by staff based on staff recommendation and, of course, the need for more services like this in the community. And the motion passes. Thank you very much. So moving on to the next one, we have case 9.5, which is a variance. Could I get a motion to hear this case?
Make a motion to approve 9.5.
I second.
All right, perfect.
She made a motion to approve this case. Are you just making a motion to hear this case?
Sorry, yes, yeah, it would be to hear this case. Does she need to repeat it, or?
Sorry about that. I'll make a motion to hear case 9.5.
Thank you. Just in case. Keep us safe and legal. Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Costa?
Yes.
Chair Guerrero?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my final case, anyway, Vince Bonegas, interim planner for the record. My final case involves a couple of variances for property located at 801 East Farney Lane. It is case 22VO05000089. Current conditions regarding the property is 3.98 acres. It is property you have seen. There was a rezoning request that came forward, oh gosh, I want to say a couple of months ago. It all blurs together. But at that time, the property size was listed a little greater than the 3.98. I did mention that there was some effort to clarify that, and we have, and it is shown correctly on this slide at 3.9 acres. It is an underutilized parcel that is presently pancake zone. It has R3 and C3 conditional zoning on it, R3 being our multi-dwelling medium density designation, and our C3 is a commercial high intensity zoning district. The conditions that were attached to it at the time of zoning back in the day talked to residential caps, talked to restrictions on commercial uses and hours of operation for those commercial uses and liquor sales. So when the applicant came forward those few months ago with a zone change request, they were seeking to rezone from the R3C3C designation to straight R3. And it is the straight R3 zoning designation to which these variances will speak. The conditions that I identified are found in Ordinance 2767, and just wanted to let you know that the case was originally intended to go before City Council at an earlier date, but there was a provision, I believe, in the purchase agreement that required the consideration by council to be moved back. And so it is anticipated that October 3rd, first meeting in October, would be the designated date for hopefully approval of that zoning or zone change request. But this evening, as part of the next step for development processes regarding this property, the variances are under consideration. And the property, if you recall, was identified as part of the urban neighborhood place type. And urban neighborhood kind of elevates the residential component from low to moderate to high residential densities, again with intermixed commercial uses within that place type. It's also subject to the El Paseo Corridor Blueprint, Community Blueprint, as was stated previously for the earlier case. And the applicant's request facilitates development of a proposed senior apartment complex. The existing, again, looking at it from the R3 lens, the existing R3 zoning allows the property to be developed with a density of 20 dwelling units per acre. If you do the math using that 3.98 acreage, it comes to just under 80, and so 79 dwelling units would be authorized. It also restricts the height, the maximum height, to 35 feet, and it was the developer's applicant's intention to have 80 units total and up to 42 feet in building height. So this is the zoning map of the subject property. It's outlined in red. It's still showing that pancake designation, which again, if council approves the request as recommended by this body to them, it'll receive an R3 designation. You do have R3 immediately east and further north of the subject property. C3 is directly north of the subject property. That's where a church is located, and I believe they have daycare facilities as well. You have commercial zoning, C2 designated further east of the R3. The R3 is a park, and then you get into your R1As. Your R3 underlying PUD zoning sits here. That is a residential development south of Farney Lane, and then further west along El Paseo you have a residential development following the R1A standards and Las Cruces High School above that. Again, an aerial showing the property outlined. You do see a single-family home more or less at the south, or I should say the northeast corner of the intersection of El Paseo Road and Farney Lane. That is proposed for demolition when development ultimately begins for the subject property, pending approval, of course. So the proposal this evening, again, I mentioned, involves two variances. One is a 7-foot variance to the maximum 35-foot height allowed pursuant to the R3 district. 42 feet is the ultimate build-out that they're looking at. And one dwelling unit variance to the maximum 79 dwelling units allowed in the R3 zoning district for this property. Again, they want to go to 80. So the variances, if approved, facilitate the development of a senior apartment complex, and it is stated in the proposal that the layout, the design of the facility, et cetera, has taken into consideration the ability to go to 80 units and 42 feet ultimate height. So in terms of the height, not all of the building that is being proposed, at least the main building being proposed, would take advantage of the full 7-foot exceedance. There will be at least, I'll be showing you an site plan that shows a wing-shaped building, and it is the wings that will go beyond the 35-foot by 3 feet. Only 8.5% of the building in its entirety, which consists of the common area, will extend 4 feet further up to 7 feet exceedance. So adding the height, it was identified by the applicant, will help conceal some of the rooftop building equipment, which we always try to do. We've got that written into our urban design section of the current zoning code. So that's a good thing. The applicant also conducted some I called it height studies, but they're sightline studies to consider minimizing the intrusive views that may be realized from one development onto another. And they've taken the time to look at that, and I think the applicant's representative can speak to that when appropriate, but they've taken the measure to try to mitigate any concerns regarding the height, and I think they found some substantial support for what they originally requested. So there was some property right-of-way takes for adjacent roadway improvements. I think some of the sidewalks that were improved and the road widths that were widened on some of the roadways, Farney and the West Park Drive, for instance. There was a need for right-of-way, and so right-of-way takes did occur. And so from a physical hardship, that decrease in acreage certainly had an impact on the 80-unit count that they would otherwise want to do. And so that was one of the considerations for the proposal, at least from the staff's perspective. The applicant also held an early notification meeting with the surrounding properties back in January of this year, actually, and they've been in contact with them since. And I believe the support is still unwavering. There's still a lot of support for the proposal, and part of the reason is some of the other zoning considerations in terms of existing zoning were not considered very favorable by the neighborhood. So this is, it's a site plan that staff has kind of worked with the applicant on. If you recall, the area along here was garage line buildings. I'm sure the applicant's representative can speak to some of the options they've considered based on staff meeting and discussion. but they are now locating the duplex units closer to El Paseo Road and having them front at least that roadway and bringing the development closer to said roadway. The garage units or structures are being dispersed throughout the site, and this is that winged main building that I mentioned, and of course landscaping. This is still what I would consider conceptual. There's been no building permit submitted, and so it's subject to some tweaks. So we'll have to wait and see what ultimately comes forward for staff consideration. So this is that wing building, 3-floor structure. Looking at the top floor, you have the 3-foot bust in terms of maximum height located along each wing. And then this common area is where the 7-foot bust would take place. So again, a small percentage of the whole exceeding the 35-foot mark by 7 feet. Just a little elevation. So part of the applicant's justification in their letter, they talked about economic financial hardship, and the variances, obviously, they pointed out, help them achieve the ultimate build-out that they've been looking at, and they feel that it remains sensitive to the surrounding neighborhood. It remains sensitive to the blueprint and the comprehensive plan. The applicant has indicated held those early notification meetings with the surrounding property owners, and when they did so, it was with the full intent of going 80 units and 42 feet in height. So it's not been a recent change. This has been an issue that they've carried forward all along. A couple of photos showing the property. House is subject to demolition. This is kind of at the intersection of El Paseo and Farney Lane. This shot is taken looking kind of west, northwest. This is the West Park Drive, and Farney Lane is right in there. And again, a different angle looking northwest. I believe that's Las Cruces Public Schools, at least part of it back in here, or Las Cruces High School, rather. So in our analysis, we found no health, safety, or welfare issues identified within the proposal, and the proposed variances we felt do indeed allow the development as originally proposed. It is within the urban place type and is consistent with that place type and the El Paseo corridor from a use perspective. And so we feel that the comp plan does encourage and support the request. It does provide for mixed use, medium to high density residential densities along that corridor. It seeks to achieve attainable housing. It certainly provides an added element of variety in terms of housing styles. And in terms of the blueprint, again, higher density is encouraged along the corridor, et cetera. There is some streetscape design that they try to improve upon with the change out of some of the structures on site. So generally speaking, from a use perspective, at minimum, we feel that it's compliant with those planning documents. The case was noticed as per code earlier in the month, and that early notification took place in January. Staff has not received any recent input from the neighborhood regarding this issue. So staff has the following recommendation and findings. We're asking for a conditional approval consideration, and the condition would read that approval of the variances shall be contingent upon the approval of pending zone change to R3, and that again is set before City Council in the coming months. So the issue there is basically if that R3 doesn't get approved, then the variance is a moot point. And so that's why we're asking for them to be tied together in context to a condition. So the findings are that the property is underutilized and is 3.98 acres in size. Currently has that pancake zoning, but a rezoning request has been proposed. The variances do speak to the R3 standards as indicated. All along, the applicant has considered 80 units in the 42-foot height design. There's been no consideration of or concern cited during any discussions regarding height and density. The applicant's desire to proceed with their proposal requires the variances as identified in this presentation. It also, the property falls within the infill area in that it's underutilized. There is always policy to seek the conversion of property that is inactive to active status. And the subject parcel is subject to and staff feels compliant with the bulk of El Paseo Corridor Community Blueprint. The property is also within that urban neighborhood place type, and there's consistency with that characterization for that place type. So all three criteria of the variances in some form or fashion are met. Staff feels they're met. The acreage reduction, for instance, speaks to a physical hardship. With that acreage in place, they wouldn't have had to ask for the one dwelling unit variance. It also speaks to the project spurring considerable economic development both at the neighborhood and citywide level for the project. Certainly shorter term and longer term, it's a benefit to the neighborhood and some of the commercial uses within that area. And of course, monetary considerations can't be specifically looked at, but if it drastically impacts the project, we can consider those, and I think the applicant has discussed that in their justification. They need these considerations to move forward with their project. Several goals, policies, and actions within the comprehensive plan support the request, as does the purpose and intent of the zoning code and the criteria for decisions of the municipal code. So your options this evening is vote yes and approve the request. You can deny it and provide findings to the contrary or what staff's presented. You could vote yes with the conditions staff has proposed or any additional that you may feel prudent to apply, and you can also vote to table the request. And this concludes staff's presentation. I know Mr. Ron Bohannon is in the audience from Tierra West, representative for this case. And between us, we can answer any question you may have.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Would you like to come up and speak? All right, before I have you speak, I would need to swear you in. Could we have your first and last name, please?
Ronald Bohannon, B as in boy, O-H-A-N-N-A-N.
Thank you for the clarification. And do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
All right, perfect. It looks like you have a presentation, so looking forward to it.
Thank you. I'm actually going to abbreviate this quite a bit. Vincent did a fantastic job. We've been very pleased. First of all, I want to say that Tom Manchek was going to be here. He appeared before you guys on the zoning case. He had a family issue, and so he could not get here from Boise, Idaho. And just to remind you that this individual has been doing affordable housing for decades, retains his ownership, and this is going to be a very good asset for the city of Las Cruces. And just to give you some numbers, a one-bedroom unit, to qualify, it'll be as low as $12,800 of income per year. And a two-bedroom will go to $14,600. So very low thresholds. So it really represents affordable housing for seniors, which is in dire need for the city. I think the primary one, the one unit is a pretty easy one to do. I mean, we looked really hard to try to find 2/100 of a square foot so we wouldn't have to come in and ask for the 1 unit variance, but we just couldn't get there. So we're asking for the 1 unit, and there was several right-of-way takes, as Vincent has pointed out. The height variance, that's a little one for people to understand, is when you go from floor to floor on a multi-story building, what you have is you have a lot of different mechanical equipment and other areas, and you want to have adequate heights inside your units. And so what that does is it builds up that need. And so what we've done is we've actually set that to the bare minimum that we've gotten, which is at 42 feet for predominantly the most of the building. And then in the middle of the corridor is where our elevator shafts are. And so what we need there is to bump it up for 2 reasons. One is nice to have a little bit of architectural articulation and relief on that area, but also to hide those elevator shafts as well. So we worked with the fire department. We're going to have 2 full service elevator shafts in there as well. Through that. I'll be happy to go through the site plan with the commission. I know there was a lot of questions at the zoning. We've made quite a bit, and I think let me just do one real quick. And I can, oops, I need to go back. How do I go back? Thank you. So what we did along El Paseo was in the site plan, we reoriented the site, and we really worked at it really hard. We pulled a lot of different elements on it. And so what we wanted to do was create that streetscape that engaged El Paseo. And we actually looked at the school, which is north of there, and we looked at how their walkway was in front of it, and so we really actually have mimicked that area. And so what we did is we took the 3 units and we built those, we pulled those up against El Paseo, and then what we did is we created an entrance off of El Paseo so that the residents, once you have transit on El Paseo, can utilize that area. So what you're looking at is you have these 3 buildings here, and then we've really articulated this entrance right through here, and we plan on bringing that articulated entrance all the way to the front, as well as enhancing this as a tenant-only entrance and through this area. With that, we'll be happy to go through, if there's any questions from the commission, on all of the site variances, site orientations, but we tried to really look at how to take this and engage the street, and we think we've done that. If we looked at other options, what that ended up doing was it put our units looking down into the neighbors' backyards, and so we really felt this was the best use and best orientation for that project. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the commission might have.
Absolutely, thank you. Do we have any questions from the commission?
I don't have a question, but I just want to give my appreciation for this project. I think it's great, and I'm glad that you tried to reduce the amount of added height in the project, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Smith?
I just have a question for staff. This is more of a zoning change education for me. Initially, back in April, when we approved this project to move forward, it was zoned R3 and then commercial. So they're still going forward as a residential. So why was the need to eliminate the commercial aspect of it?
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smith, so the applicant, keep in mind that with the existing zoning that's still in play, the packet that is seeking to change it from R3 C3C to R3 only is still going forward. It just looked at the zoning aspect. There was no variance consideration as part of that. So the primary reason the applicant requested that zoning designation was a couple of things. With the R3 zoning, they could accomplish what they wanted to do. And another thing, with those conditions that were in place with the R3, C3C designation, there was substantial restrictions on the density. 60 units, if I recall correctly, that's correct.
So basically that allowed them to increase the number of units.
Yeah, if they go via the zone change and get rid of those conditions, they can go with what the R3 allows, and they're just shy 1 unit, so that's the variance.
All right, thanks for that clarification. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have any questions, but, just want to echo, it's very needed to have this kind of property and housing in Las Cruces, so thank you very much. Do we have any questions or comments from the public? It looks like none, so, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yes. Are you both coming up at the same time or one? Oh, okay, perfect, yeah. Come on up then. Just watch your step there. Yeah. All righty, well, I need to swear you in. Could I get your first and your last name, please?
Yeah, my name is Joel Jaquez.
Okay, and do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
All righty, go ahead. You have 3 minutes, I believe.
Okay, all right, my name is Joel Jaquez, and I'm a resident of the subdivision directly south of the subject property, the Heritage Farm subdivision. And my main concern is they added traffic. I know that I've been to almost every meeting that we've been invited to, and the developer assures us that the type of resident in this building, they're not big drivers. He said there won't be a problem with traffic, but it's hard for me to believe with the density that they're wanting. There's going to be a lot of people, but we can't control the traffic. Well, anyways, my main concern is sometimes we leave my house at about 9 o'clock in the morning and go down West Park because I work not too far away. But anyways, traffic is a mess. There is kids all over the place. Of course, in the summer when there's not school, it's not bad, but it's pretty bad when at 9 o'clock when they're going to and from class. And as far as the building height, I used to be a framer, and we built a garage for a client, and it was, well, we started building a garage, and it was 1 foot taller than the 35-foot maximum. We had to change the whole roof to get it to work. So I understand that the codes are there for a reason. The variances, the heights, protecting people's views, making the city consistent, uniform, and I just have a problem with the density and blocking the view of the people that live across the street.
All right, thank you so much. Before we, sorry, I didn't, you also had a comment? All right, yes, I would need to swear you in first, if you wouldn't mind. Okay. Your first and last name, please.
Ann Jaquez.
And do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
All right, go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
We come out at about 8 40-ish, and so not just on West Park, but
Could you please move closer to the microphone?
You bet.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But also on Farney itself, a lot of the parents are coming from El Paseo onto Farney, or even from the other direction, and then going down West Park to drop off. So, and you also get the same thing in the afternoons. And then, so I know on the other side of El Paseo, on Farney, they have some speed bumps to help slow. They have 2 of them, and they also have the little thing that flashes at you if you are driving faster than 25. And because that is a really people get on there and they go much more quickly than 25. So that is a big concern. And even 4 months ago, our neighbor George, who's right up there, his back part of his fence was ran into by a car from a high school student that came off of West Park, had been stopped, lost control, and broke down his block wall. So it's something that I'm hoping the city will look into to make sure that that's really going to be safe. And then during soccer season, West Park, you have all the parents and the kids parking there to watch the soccer and all that stuff. So parking and just car traffic, it's something I'm hoping that they look at seriously. Okay?
Yeah, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate those comments.
You bet.
Yeah, thank you, and be careful walking back up. Do we have anybody else? Yes, please come up front.
I don't know why I'm doing this, but
No problem. If I could get your first and last name, please.
my name is Elizabeth McNamee.
All right, and do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
All right, perfect. You have 3 minutes as well. Thank you.
Okay, I live on Crescent Drive, right in the curve. So this whole thing is going to block my whole vision of the mountains. And I'm concerned about what that's going to do to my property, the amount, my property is worth and everything. And it just seems to have gotten bigger, and I'm just scared. I don't know what this is going to do to my life, and I just wanted everyone to know I haven't been able to get to any of the meetings because I have a hard time getting around sometimes. But I don't know. It's right in my line of vision, right up to the mountains from my backyard. And as the height of this thing, if it was 2 stories, maybe it could have gotten by, but 3 stories, it's going to be crazy. And I'm not so worried about the traffic as much, but I am worried about, what's going to do to my property. What it's due. Anyway, my 2 cents.
Oh, thank you very much, and we're glad you could make it. I think we had one more person wanting to speak. Just please watch your step.
Mr. Chair, I do want to point out that there is a ramp for those people that are more comfortable traveling down a ramp than stairs, just for the future.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just always concerned I hope nobody falls and hurts themselves. All right, thank you for coming up. Could we get your first and last name, please?
I'm sorry?
Could we get your first and your last name?
My first name is George, and my last name is Pintar, spelled P-I-N-T-A-R.
Okay, and do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, I do.
All right, go ahead. You have 3 minutes as well.
I'm not so concerned about the traffic. I'm not concerned about the height of the building, but I am concerned about the definition of the senior complex. I would like to have a definition of what meant by the senior complex.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Do we have maybe the applicant would like to answer maybe what the age range or, definition of the residents would be?
Is there an age limit?
Yeah, yes. What would the age limit be?
So, Mr. Chair, there is an age limit. I believe it's over 55. So anybody under 55 can't live at that. It's age restricted.
Okay, perfect. So over 55 years old?
Over 55.
Over 55.
And will there be a sliding scale in regard to financial?
Mr. Chair, yes, I believe there is. I gave you the very lowest limits, but there is a sliding scale based on income.
Okay.
In early discussions with the people who live in Heritage Farms, it was our understanding that the price was going to be about $12.60 per unit.
Mr. Chair, right now, we're looking at a one-bedroom unit of between $343 to $649 per unit, and a two-bedroom unit from $411 to $823 per unit. That's with all of the price increases that we've had because of the pandemic and supply chain. But that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, thank you.
Still very, very affordable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Did you have any more questions, sir?
Not yet. One of the real concerns, though, is in the relationship to not only the age limit, financial limit, but also how long will all of these items be in place? Is there going to be any kind of time limit?
Mr. Chair, Thomas Development has, and I don't know exactly how many they have, but they keep these for over 15 years. It's part of the conditions of approval for affordability that they have to commit, and I want to say it's at least a 15-year time frame. I would need to verify that, but I'm pretty sure it's a 15-year time frame.
All right, thank you.
Oh. May I have one more minute?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, we had some people come through our subdivision concerned about our property value, and is there any kind of history, research, and so forth that shows that the property value surrounding one of these senior complexes is deteriorated or lessened?
Mr. Chair, I was going to address this anyway. Property values are set by like properties. I've been doing development, engineering development and management for well over 4 decades. So what you don't have is you can't have a change in value because of a project. It can affect it, but it doesn't usually affect it negatively. So when you have an appraisal done on a property, they won't look at it and say, oh, because you're living next to this property, it's decreased. They will look at like properties around that area to value those areas. So they look at the areas through that area, and that's a very common question. The Thomas Development, like I said, they've kept these properties well over 15 years. They're professionally managed. Tom Manchek comes with his wife many times through the year, and they really are engaged in their properties. And so this is going to be a very good piece of property that I don't see that affecting land values. And I just might as well finish. From a traffic standpoint, sure. We have offset these entrances to the subdivision to the south. At the time, Hector Terrazas was the traffic engineer with the city of Las Cruces. We set this at this area. These are gated. There is a parking problem along the park that's created by the high school. I don't know how to get around that. It's nothing that we're going to be creating. The residents over time really stopped driving, and so really they do not have a need for doing a lot of trips through this area. So they're going to be off peak hours as well. So the traffic on this area is diminished versus a regular for market rent, or definitely for a commercial area. The traffic is substantially reduced. I'm a registered professional engineer. We do traffic studies. We do that for a living, and so that's my testimony as a professional engineer as well. From the view heights, we've got about a 3 to 4 foot drop from El Paseo down. The height on this is 35 feet anyway, so even if we weren't there, 35 feet's up, going to be up there, and that it is what it is. So.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, I completely agree. There's little you can do as far as like the high school, and MSU's right around the corner. I mean, it is a high trafficked area. You know, we can just hope that this doesn't make it too much more trafficky.
It is gated as well.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's good. Do we have any more comments of the commission before we go into a vote? Commissioner Smith or whoever wants to go first. Okay, Commissioner Kaiser, go first.
Yeah, a couple of questions. One, I think, would address some of the traffic concerns that were raised a little bit earlier. The city recently passed a complete streets ordinance, which is designed to improve traffic safety for all roadway users, reduce speeds through traffic design. So my question to staff is, any street improvements, how would that ordinance affect this project?
In term, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kaiser, in terms of specific street improvements for this project regarding this variance, there's no anticipated change that has been identified at this point in time. Again, they have not submitted for any building permit for the project yet. They're getting not only the zoning but the variance issue resolved. So staff does not anticipate any change to the right-of-way as part of this development project. So that's what I have for you.
Okay, I appreciate that, because you mentioned earlier that there were some right-of-way easements that were, in your words, that would accommodate improvements that this development would require. So would they not then be required to follow that complete streets ordinance in this scenario?
Well, in this, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Kaiser, in reference to the right-of-way takes that took place in the past, those were for some of the improvements along Farney Lane that have been made, and any improvements primarily for sidewalk, that kind of thing, along West Park Drive as well. So you'll notice in some of those photos, the roadways look in pretty good shape, and that's because there was an effort to improve those roadways, and they needed some of that right-of-way or land for right-of-way acquisition in order to accommodate those changes. But nothing is being set in motion in terms of that specific ordinance.
Okay, I understand. So the improvements have already been installed?
Correct.
Got you. My other question is about the streetscape, particularly along El Paseo Road. I'm not sure I agree with the notion that El Paseo Road has been activated from a streetscape perspective, given the fact that you're basically would be walking right up against a compound wall. You have no building facades on El Paseo. So in my opinion, you're not activating anything. I do appreciate the location or the revised location of the garages to more interior part and having the duplex there. But at the end of the day, this thing is an enclosed compound, so I'm not sure I agree with that sentiment. And then I also noticed, or it appears that the landscaping along El Paseo would be almost entirely inside the compound wall. And so my question would be, if that's true, why wouldn't we want to accommodate some of that landscaping either between the sidewalk and this wall, or El Paseo, the sidewalk and the wall? I think if you were able to do that, you could probably make a slightly better argument that you're activating that streetscape. But I think right now, I just don't see how you can say that.
Speak to that?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Kaiser, we actually did two things. One is we mimicked exactly what was happening at the Las Cruces High School. There are no landscaping. It's all hardscape. It is that's in front of their buildings. It's all walled off. You can't gate it. There's no pedestrian connectivity at all between the school and the sidewalk. It's just a conveyance. So what we are doing is we're balancing that, and we definitely can add more landscaping outside of the compound to balance all those areas out. But we are actually creating that engagement up into the street. You also have speeds of upwards of 45 posted. People are driving 55 and 60 miles an hour along that street. So when you actually do get to a point where you want to engage El Paseo, you really need to look at slowing down traffic on El Paseo. This is one step towards that. It does create that area. We do know that eventually maybe you will have a trolley going down El Paseo. So we've made as many amenities and connections that we can to do that, but we're also trying to keep our residents safe through that area. So we'd be happy to work with staff when we're at building permit to do that, to do those type of elements.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I would encourage you to continue to work with staff to make those improvements. And I would just say, using what you just described at the high school, it would not be a great example to go by, in my opinion. We should be doing the complete opposite of that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner Kaiser. Commissioner Smith, you had a comment?
Yes, I too share some concerns with traffic that the Jakewood couple that came up. I'm very familiar with this area. When I first moved here 24 years ago, for a year I lived on Farney between El Paseo and North Main, and I know that over the years they've put in some traffic mitigation and calming measures. You know, the applicant said that, you know, the drivers, well, the minimum age is going to be 55, you know, for residents. I'm 61. I plan on driving for a while. So I think that, you know, a 55-year-old up and above can continue to drive for quite a long time if they're, you know, in good health. So the traffic that's going to, there will be an increase in traffic. And you know, I know this area, that park that they talk about where the soccer games, we're coming into the fall season. Soccer league's going to be in place. There's another additional field to the east of that where soccer is played from NMSU students. There's a child care center there that gets heavy traffic in the morning, and not to mention the traffic from the high school. I'm not sure what's changed over the generations, but it seems like most high school kids either get taken to school by their parents or they're driving their own cars. I think school buses are not cool to ride on anymore. So the amount of traffic around Las Cruces High, because I live near there every day, is just incredible. And also, there are very few drop-off points for the students. So in the mornings, throughout the school year, there will always be, you know, a high level of traffic, and having this facility here, this complex here, the traffic will not be reduced. It will continue to be high, and it actually will increase. So I know this is more of an issue for the city as far as what they can do at Las Cruces High to help you know, manage the traffic there. But just looking at this area and just my experience and familiarity with it, the traffic will actually continue to increase. And I'm not sure, as you said, you're not sure how that could be addressed, but I just want to put on the record, I think this is a concern that's going to factor in as this project goes forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Do we have any more comments from any other members of the commission? No, in that case, could we get a motion to vote on this?
I make a motion to approve 9.5 with the conditions outlined in the staff report.
I second.
All right.
Board Member Vega?
I vote yes to approve with the conditions pending the R3 approval. Also look forward to seeing more affordable housing in our city.
Board Member Smith?
I vote yes for approval with conditions based on staff recommendation, and I just hope that the traffic issue will be addressed at some point in the future.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes, with conditions based on staff recommendation, consistency with Elevate Las Cruces, and this definitely fills a need in our community.
Board Member Bennett?
I vote to approve based on staff recommendation, site survey. This also meets the thoroughfare plan along with the El Paseo corridor blueprint.
Board Member Acosta?
I vote yes to approve based on staff recommendation, and with just mild concern over security, because I know we didn't really hear that word too much tonight, but I think everything looks good as well. Thank you.
Chair Guerrero?
I vote yes as well, based on staff recommendation, fitting with the Elevate Las Cruces and the El Paseo corridor plans, and as well the conditions proposed by staff.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would like to have the conditions, that the motion was made with conditions, but I would like to have the conditions specifically read for the record so we know what that condition was.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Mr. Nichols, the condition that staff put forward is as follows. That approval of the variances shall be contingent upon the approval of the pending zone change to R3, multi-dwelling medium density.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That condition will be as the vote was, as the motion was made in the seconds. Thank you.
Perfect. So we don't need to vote for it again, right? I think we're good. All right, perfect. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. We still have 3 cases to go, so hope everybody's ready. Up next, we have case number 9.6. Could I get a motion to hear this case?
I make a motion to hear 9.6.
I second.
Okay.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Acosta?
Yes.
Chair Guerrero?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, perfect. Go ahead.
Good evening once again, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Today, we're going to be talking about 5332 Melody Lane. It is going to be a subdivision road waiver request. Current conditions of the property is located at 5332 Melody Lane. It is a single-family residence on approximately 1.81 acres. It's currently zoned REM, which is our single-family residential estate mobile zoning district. As I said before, it's located on Melody Lane, which has been classified as a local roadway. Right now, Melody Lane currently consists of a 50-foot roadway easement, 25 feet between different properties. And it also currently has a 20-foot wide paved roadway. It's located in a low-density, single-family residential area. As you can see here from the zoning map, this is the subject property. Here's an aerial image of the property. On this aerial image, the part that we're going to be talking about is going to be this section right here, just a little bit north of the property line. So the proposal today is to waive the road improvement requirements associated with the subdivision. The associated subdivision is a 2-lot, single-family subdivision. As part of this, they're required to construct a full cross-section, including pavement, sidewalk, curb and gutter, and lighting. They've also dedicated a 25-foot roadway easement as part of the subdivision. As you can see here, this is the proposed subdivision. This is the 25-foot roadway easement that was on the property before that's going to be dedicated to the city. As we can see here from the images, this is an westbound view of Melody Lane as it currently sits. This is an eastbound view of Melody Lane as we can see it today. The required cross-sections are both a minor local 1 or a minor local 2. They require, like I said, a sidewalk, driving aisles, curb and gutter. Public notice was sent to all relevant, or input and public notice were sent out. All relevant agencies and departments reviewed. All of them provided a recommendation of denial under the first review, all except for utilities. Utilities didn't provide any recommendation for denial as it didn't currently impact them. Notice was also sent out to the surrounding properties. There was minor feedback, although I put on here there was no feedback. There was minor feedback in regards to what exactly the notice was regarding for the property. Staff recommended denial based on the following findings. Construction of all subdivision within the corporate limits of the city shall conform to the applicable sections of the city design standards. Access to lots within a residential subdivision shall be from a dedicated and accepted improved public right-of-way. The subdivider is responsible for providing road improvements for 1/2 of I apologize for that. It's supposed to be for a full section of local roadway, which includes sidewalk, curb, and gutter, as per the design standards in section 32-36. The applicant has not demonstrated the need for the waiver due to substantial hardship, such as exceptional topographic, soil, or other surface or subsurface conditions. The DRC has also recommended that that the roadway, recommended approval of the roadway improvements along Melody Lane, as the project is going to be part of a capital improvement project, which at this moment has not been determined when the roadways would be improved through city funding, but they are slated to be a part of the projects. So today's options are going to be to vote yes for approval, vote no to deny, and vote yes with conditions, or vote to table.
Thank you very much. Do we have any comments from the commission?
So I just wanted clarification. So earlier you said they recommended denial, and then it says in here that it's they recommended approval, the DRC. I guess I'm just confused.
Yes, so staff provides a recommendation to DRC, which is our Development Review Committee. From there, so the way the road waiver request works is that it has to go before our Development Review Committee for a recommendation to Planning and Zoning Commission, where the Planning and Zoning Commission will provide a recommendation to City Council. Once it goes to City Council, it will get adopted as a resolution based on their determination.
So just for clarification, they recommended approval of the waiver, or?
Correct.
Okay.
The Development Review Committee recommended approval of the waiver based on comments made by an associate or deputy director from Public Works, saying that it was going to be a part of a capital improvement project.
So just to clarify that point, so staff's recommendation to us tonight is to approve the waiver?
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question. So the capital improvement project is going through? I mean, that's going to happen?
So from my understanding, the capital improvement project is slated to happen. I just don't know exactly when.
Mr. Chair, if I might,
Yes.
this particular area in the city has been part of some extensive studies in terms of improvement, both from a drainage standpoint and which roadways might be ripe for full improvements. Melody Lane is the first one in line on that list of roads to be improved in this particular area. So it will be sooner than later. I'm not quite certain, as John had indicated, if it's going to be next year, but it is on the list, and it's the first one in this particular area.
Okay. Commissioner Kaiser, do you have another comment or question?
Yeah, I think our confusion is the staff report has two things. It has denial, and then also approval. So we're approving the waiver per staff's recommendation tonight.
Yes, so yes, staff recommended denial. However, the Development Review Committee recommended approval.
Okay, thank you. No further questions. I think my other questions are irrelevant.
Yeah, this one's a little confusing as well, but thank you very much for clarifying that. Do we have any members from the public that would like to make a comment? Seeing none. Well, could I get a motion for just whatever we're doing? Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not see you. Please come up forward. All righty, I'll need to swear you in. If I could get your first and last name, please.
Aaron Gutierrez.
All right, Mr. Gutierrez, and do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes.
All right, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
I am a property owner on that Melody Lane, and I know there is a lot of running water that goes through and destroys the end of the property point where he was mentioning, because I'm right on the corner of Mesa Grande and Melody Lane. Is this going to be all the way, the whole street completely with curving gutter and new asphalt and stuff like that on that? Is that including sewer and electric, or, I mean, sewer and gas, or just an upgrade on the road?
Yeah, do we have a staff answering? I believe it was just a portion of that, right? It's not the full street?
Mr. Chair, Commission, so the property owner would be required to do a full cross-section for his property and then asphalt for the remainder up to the nearest paved or nearest improved roadway. It does not include any type of utilities.
Okay. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Do we have any other member from the public that would like to make a comment or ask a question? Seeing none, could I get a motion from the commission?
So I think I'm going to do this right. So will motion to approve agenda item 9.6, which is waiving the road improvements associated with this subdivision. Is that correct?
I second. And if we need to clarify that, please let us know.
Yeah, do we have the correct motion made?
So, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, the motion should always be made in the affirmative.
Okay.
Always.
Okay. Then I believe we're good to go.
Board Member Vega?
I vote to approve the waiver based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Smith?
I vote no to deny based on this request not meeting 3 of the 4 zoning decision criteria and policies.
So, point of order, Commissioner Smith, your vote, is it to approve the waiver or is it to deny the waiver?
To deny the waiver.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes, to approve the waiver based on staff's recommendation and the fact that there's a capital improvement planning project ongoing that will address these concerns.
Board Member Bennett?
I vote to approve based on DRC recommendations, discussion tonight, neighborhood character, and the CIP that will be happening.
Board Member Acosta.
I vote to approve based off of the recommendation of approval and elevate Las Cruces.
Chair Guerrero.
I as well vote yes to approve based on the DRC recommendation, and yeah, I just vote yes.
Approval 5-1. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. This one passes. We're moving on to the next one, which is item number 9.7. Could I get a motion to hear the case?
I make a motion to hear item 9.7.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right.
Board Member Vega.
Yes.
Board Member Smith.
Yes.
Board Member Kaiser.
Yes.
Board Member Bennett.
Yes.
Board Member Acosta.
Yes.
Chair Guerrero.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening once again. Today we are bringing forth another subdivision road waiver request. This one is going to be located at 1086 Kennedy Road. The current conditions for the property, it's a single-family residence on 2.27 acres. It's currently zoned to REM. Once again, it's our single-family residential estate mobile. Kennedy Road is a proposed principal arterial. Currently, it has a 20-foot wide paved road, and it is a low-density single-family residential area. Here's a zoning map showing the area. Here's an aerial of the area. So the proposal is to waive the roadway improvement requirements associated once again with the subdivision process. They are going through the alternate summary subdivision process where it takes one lot and they're going to turn it into 2 single-family subdivision lots. Currently, right now, Kennedy Road sits as a 40-foot right-of-way. They are also going to dedicate an additional 40 feet, and they are required to construct half a road cross-section, which includes pavement, sidewalk, curb and gutter, and lighting. As we can see here from the proposed subdivision, this portion right here is going to be what they dedicate to the city of Las Cruces for the roadway improvements. As we can see here, looking eastbound on Kennedy Road, we can see the asphalt that currently sits there. And this is what it looks like going westbound. The required cross sections, whichever they choose, are here. And as we can see, being a major arterial, it is going to require a 120-foot right-of-way. And as it currently sits, they are not going to meet the entire cross-section, so they would only provide half of their cross-section. Public notice and input. Reviewers were sent to all relevant agencies and departments. All except for utilities recommended the denial of the review. Notice was also sent out to surrounding properties. Once again, we did receive phone calls on this regarding how it would impact surrounding properties. On July 13, 2022, this did go before our Development Review Committee. Staff did have a discussion. They recognized the existing improvements were needed. However, they did recommend a fee in lieu of the required improvements for the preferred construction. Based on that, the Development Review Committee recommended denial based on strict interpretation of the code. The denial based on findings from staff as well, as stated before, were based on construction of all subdivisions. Access to lots within a residential subdivision shall be from a dedicated and accepted right-of-way. The subdivider is responsible for providing road improvements for 1/2 of an adjacent minor arterial roadway, and the applicant has not demonstrated the need for the waiver due to substantial hardship, due to exceptional topographic, soil, or other surface or subsurface conditions, or that such conditions would result in inhibiting the objectives of the code. Today, your options are to vote yes for approval, vote no to deny, vote yes with conditions, or vote to table.
All right, thank you very much for that presentation. Do we still have a representative from Moy serving on? Did you want to come up and say a few things? And I won't need to swear you in because you've already been sworn in, so go ahead.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. I have a question that maybe staff can help answer for me first. It's kind of related to a dedication take, but would a building permit without any replat require a dedication or trigger a dedication as well? So the confirmation or the answer I'm getting is that a replat or a building permit by itself wouldn't trigger a dedication, which I think is really interesting always because as we've heard other presentations tonight that are multi-million-dollar presentations, I'm almost certain that El Paseo has to grow in its right-of-way width because I'm doing a replat there, which is requiring it, but it's only because we are vacating property lines that the city now has the opportunity to take a dedication and then potentially require improvements on it because we're removing lot lines, versus a multi-million-dollar building project may not require additional right-of-way dedication, which then wouldn't trigger improvements potentially on that. We also just saw with our last case that I also don't believe this is cited for a CIP, and I don't know if staff can answer that question very quickly, but I don't believe this portion of Kennedy is within the capital improvement plan or project. So therefore, we have a case where we're required to give a right-of-way dedication to provide a payment in lieu of, in addition to that, for a portion of roadway that more than likely won't get built out. I don't even think in my lifetime, to be quite frank, only because this property, although it does connect from Engler, would have to have really large city dedication and city takes through private property to connect down to Armstrong. So that's what the major thoroughfare plan is. I don't know if I could possibly bring that up in that amount of time, but the bigger picture of this is that there is connectivity from where Engler and this road would be all the way down to where Armstrong is according to the MPO. I agree with all of that. However, I feel like at some point, I totally recognize the importance of complete streets, but I also feel like it's a challenge to burden the property owners to provide dedication on a portion of a road, well, to provide right-of-way improvement on a portion of a road that more than likely will not get built again anytime soon. With that said, my other question to staff is, are the funds for a payment in lieu earmarked for this road? Do we know that answer? Would anyone be able to?
Catherine Harrison Rogers for the record. So at this point in time, we have not earmarked fees in lieu particular roadways. However, in conversations with our finance director, it is possible to do that, but historically the answer is no.
Yeah, and again, I recognize the importance of that, but I think when we look at that whole picture in its entirety, it's a really interesting story because we have property owners who are, quote, very factually developing, if we will, because they are increasing the number of lots, but are now required to give a payment in lieu for a road that may not even be the road that they are in fact living in front of. So yes, this road does need some improvement. We've seen that it is a city-maintained road that has not been very well maintained from the city in its previous years. But my concern is also that the payment in lieu won't even help to satisfy what is required of this road that the denials from DRC stated. And I think that's a very interesting thing to consider as we continue to think about this, because again, I think if this was in the CIP, then we might be looking at a different recommendation. However, because it's not, the homeowner is then required to provide payments in lieu of for a road that won't get built, but the payment won't even be applied towards this portion of a road, more than likely, as it's probably not high on the list because that road dead ends about 1,000 feet down the road before it'll ever become the minor arterial that it has to be to connect to it. So I think it's, again, just important to think of that whole narrative, but I just wanted to make sure that the commission is aware of that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Do we have any comments from the commission? Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Kaiser.
This one's also a little bit of a head scratcher for me. So I think the first place that I immediately went to when reading through this application is really the existing conditions as it compares to what supposedly the future conditions should be at some undetermined time in the future. And I'm having trouble sort of making the connection there. I intellectually understand the need to plan and to identify a minor arterial road, but when you look at the existing conditions of the site and the neighborhood, and I think it's even stated in the DRC comments that more than likely the city's going to need to execute eminent domain to be able to fully build out the road as it's being planned for in the thoroughfare plan. So the fact that an in lieu fee is not earmarked is a little bit worrisome in that regard, and that we have no idea if and when the city can even fully build out this road. And here we are asking somebody to pay a significant amount of money for just subdividing a single residential lot to go into the general fund that may not even ultimately end up contributing to the funding of the road if and when it does in fact get built. So that's kind of what I'm struggling with, I guess, is how to kind of reconcile that. I could certainly see a need for something smaller, that would match more appropriately the existing conditions in the site, maybe some modified improvements. But if you go back to that road section, the road cross sections that you showed, that's a heck of a lot of money that they're going to have to put up. And then if you compare that with the existing conditions, it's not adding up to me. And then I guess my ultimate question for clarification is, we're talking a total of 80-foot right-of-way designation on both those parcels, right?
So for this one, it would be the parcel as a whole would give, it's dedicating right now another 40 feet. Through a prior subdivision, it had already dedicated 5 feet. And then through this one, so in total, it'll dedicate a total of 45 feet towards the development of Kennedy Road.
Okay, so the current right-of-way as it stands now is how large?
It's the 20-foot wide paved roadway.
Okay, and then in order to accommodate this future road condition, how much right-of-way total would the city need to acquire?
So the city would need to acquire a right-of-way from each of the adjoining properties that run along Kennedy.
I understand that. So I guess looking at the cross-section, it would be 120 feet total. The city currently only has, you said 25 feet?
It's a 20-foot asphalt, as we can see from the image.
And that's the current right-of-way, 25 feet?
Yes, because from this portion, we can see that some properties have dedicated right-of-way, but they haven't, as their past subdivisions, I can't speak to how they provided their improvements, if they were waived or if they were having to be built upon, and other properties haven't created those improvements. So at the time, we don't have the full right-of-way that we would need to acquire.
Understood. And then looking across the street, directly across the street, that house would almost entirely have to be raised in order to acquire, or to even build the road, right? I mean.
Correct. That there are some properties that would have to be adjusted in order to build the roadway to its full potential. But as this occurs, it may not reach that full potential. The applicant is also allowed to propose an alternate cross-section, reducing the amount of right-of-way that they would have to build out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other comments? I had a similar concern as Commissioner Kaiser and as the representative have made, and I think it's just something to consider as we move forward with code changes and comprehensive plans. Because if we are asking people to pay a significant fee and then they don't actually see the improvement of the area they're applying for, I don't know, that's a little concerning. So just wanted to share that. Well, with that, could I make a motion, or does somebody want to make a motion for, I guess,
I make a motion to vote on item 9.7.
I second.
All right, perfect.
Board Member Vega?
Correct me if I'm wrong. If we vote to table so that we can get more answers to some of the questions that we've proposed today, was that an option? Like specifically, would this be included in the CIP, or what does happen to the funding if the property owner has to set aside funds for the street?
So this is Catherine Harrison Rogers for the record. So there's a motion on the table to move forward with a vote to approve, if that's in the affirmative. And so that motion, there was a second, correct? Was there a second on that? Yes. So that motion's on the table, and so a vote will have to be taken. So if you had wanted to table it, that would have been the motion that would have been required at the time.
Okay, so my vote then is to deny based on staff approval or staff recommendation.
Board Member Smith?
I vote to deny based on DRC and staff recommendation.
Board Member Kaiser?
I'm voting to approve the waiver based on existing conditions and the uncertainty around if and when and how the full road cross-section would be developed in the future, as well as the lack of earmarks for the in lieu fee.
Board Member Bennett?
I vote to deny based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Acosta?
I vote to approve based off of Commissioner Kaiser's response as well, and also just kind of with noticing a precedence that was kind of noted down here earlier as well, and just finding it a little bit difficult to pass on fees that no one knows where they're going to get spent yet. So, all right.
Chair Guerrero?
I will vote to deny this, but I definitely wanted to, just be known that, we need more transparency as far as like fees and where it's going. I think we owe that to the public.
The vote was 4 to deny and 2 to approve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're moving into the final item of the night, or the final case of the night, which is 9.8. Could I get a motion to hear this from the commission?
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
We've been going at this nearly 3 hours. I was wondering if we might consider a 5-minute recess, then come back to consider the last item.
I'm okay with that. How does everybody feel? Does everybody agree?
Yes, please.
All right, let's take a quick 5-minute break. It is 8:51. Come back at 8:56-ish. And we only have one last case, which is 9.8. Could I get a motion from the commission, please?
I make a motion to hear item 9.8.
Second.
All right.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Acosta?
Yes.
Chair Guerrero?
Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, Catherine Harrison Rogers for the record. Tonight we're bringing to you a couple of recommended code modifications related to recreational cannabis. So just a little history on this for those of you that may or may not have been here. April of 2021, excuse me, New Mexico adopted the Cannabis Regulation Act. That was the House bill that put into motion recreational cannabis as an allowed use all over the state of New Mexico. By September 2021, the cannabis uses were added to the zoning code. Many of you were here when those were recommended for approval to City Council. And then ultimately, in April of 2022, recreational sales were initiated in the city of Las Cruces and across the state. The Regulation Act allows jurisdictions to control the time, place, and manner, including density. So we can't restrict transportation or operation or signage, things of that nature. So again, just to sort of recap what was approved and what's allowed in our code, cannabis retail and commercial micro businesses are allowed in all of the commercial zones, C1, C2, C3. Cannabis industry, of course, is allowed in our industrial zones. The research labs are also allowed in our industrial zones, including the industrial technology. And then the residential micro businesses are allowed in EE and REM with a special use permit. There are several conditions that do apply to these. All of these cannabis uses have to be 300 feet from schools and daycares. There are some exceptions to that. Those would be those types of schools that teach adults, such as the university or commercial trade schools. Those cannabis retailers and commercial micro businesses also need to be 300 feet from single-family residential zones and also 300 feet between one another. At this point in time, the code allows that they can be closer if a special use permit is obtained, and there is no consumption allowed in C1. Cannabis industries also have some conditions that do allow some accessory retail uses. And then those residential micro businesses that require a special use permit have some additional conditions, that they have to be accessory to a primary residence, they have to be limited to no more than 200 mature plants, products for sale have to be grown on site, and they have to be located in a fully enclosed accessory building and 100 feet from other residences. There's some issues that we've encountered over the past year related to some of the buffers. One such issue is that like uses, such as pharmacies or bars or taverns, do not have buffers that have been applied to cannabis. A couple of other things to note is that staff has not identified any unique or additional impacts that would otherwise be found with other retailers. So, for example, during my research, I did contact code enforcement to see if there had been any code enforcement issues related specific to cannabis retail, and the answer was no. They really haven't encountered any of that. One of the most common complaints from the industry, we have a regular weekly meeting, and of course we as staff are here to answer questions via email and phone as well, is that those that are trying to enter the industry specific to retail or micro businesses have had a really hard time finding a location that is outside of this 300-foot buffer. It's a real challenge for people. You all, thus far this year, have heard 5 special use permits to reduce that 300-foot buffer from those types of uses to single-family residences specifically. There are also several in the queue. One non-cannabis issue that was discovered after the adoption of the repeal and replace having to do with these sections of code is there was one table that was inadvertently omitted from the code that actually has to do with some of the design standards related to commercial uses, such as setbacks and height. We would like to add that back to the code for obvious reasons. I had GIS do an analysis of commercial properties that are within the 300-foot buffer to single-family residential zones. There are over 1,000 commercial properties in the city of Las Cruces that fall within that 300-foot buffer. It's a little hard to see with this blue line, but you can see that a lot of the big commercial corridors in town, so this one would be Telshore, we have El Paseo over here, and a number of others. There's Valley. You can see that there are significant areas that are really impacted by this buffer, and it's all over the city. So what staff is recommending, based on some of these issues that have come up, is that we restore the design standards table to section 38-32, that we eliminate the 300-foot buffer from these cannabis retailers and commercial micro-businesses to the single-family residential zone, and also eliminate the 300-foot buffer between cannabis retailers and micro-businesses to other like cannabis retailers and micro-businesses. Those are outlined in conditional uses, which is section 3853 of the code. And then also to eliminate that special use permit requirement, because it would no longer be needed in this case, from 3854. Staff has outlined the findings, of course, here, as well as in the staff report. And with that, I am open to questions. Your options tonight, of course, are to approve, to deny, to vote yes with conditions if you see fit that there be any changes, or vote to table. And I do believe we have some members of the public here in support of some of these amendments.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much for that presentation. Before we move on to the public, do we have any comments or questions from the commission? We can always do it afterwards too, because I know they've been waiting for a while. So yeah, we're going to have members from the public come up.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Not a member of the commission, but a member of staff. I do have a couple of comments that impact this this proposal that's before you, or this item this evening. Right now, we have about 37 applications that have been filled out for cannabis businesses of various types: retail, storage, growth, some of those. Of those 37, 17 have been issued. What we're finding, and I don't know that it was anticipated necessarily, but what we're finding is that most of the businesses are not building new facilities. They're trying to find an existing building or structure to locate in. And that's what brings the problem of this distancing and buffering, because those available, as Ms. Harrison-Rogers mentioned, they don't always have that distancing. What's available to them, it doesn't have that distancing. So that is really kind of what's impacting a lot of this proposal. But I thought maybe it would be informational to you to realize how many are already in business, how many are pending approval from the state or other recommendations, then to what is being considered here today.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that. Please come up. Can I get your first and last name, sir?
Scott Kraling.
All right, and do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
All right, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. We appreciate the opportunity to talk. My name is Scott Kraling. I'm the Director of Public Outreach, or Public Engagement for High Horse Cannabis Company. We actually don't have stores here in Las Cruces right now because of some of these buffers. I can tell you that we would have stores open and running, and we're not necessarily in the list yet because we're kind of waiting to see what happens to make good business decisions. I think that the one thing that I want to say is that it's important as we move forward in this new industry that we treat cannabis the same way that we treat other businesses. I don't think that any of us are going to pretend like it wasn't illegal in the recent past, but it's no longer illegal, and so with prohibition over, it's important for us to move into a new world where we're talking about cannabis not in terms of being bad, but in terms of being good, because there's a lot of value that it offers to a lot of people, including myself. And so we wanted to be here to thank the staff for their approach to cannabis zoning, and all the ways that the city staff has approached this industry, I think, is a model for other communities to follow. And so thank you for that. And please know that there are people in the industry who will positively benefit from this, obviously, right? You're opening up a lot more opportunities. And one thing that I noticed when I considered what that map looked like and what types of areas that the current restrictions are eliminating, and they're Solano, North Main. Communities are commercial districts that could use some revitalization. And so I think opening it up is going to contribute to social equity, and I think that it's going to be a good thing for the city of Las Cruces. And so thanks for bringing this forward. Certainly hope that we can count on your support. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there any other member of the public that would like to speak? Yeah, come ahead. If I could get your first and last name, please.
I am Derek Pacheco, for the record.
All right, and do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
All right, go ahead. You have 3 minutes as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Excellent job tonight. I know you've had a long night. I'll make it brief.
I think just real quick, if you could speak a little closer to the mic so that she can hear you.
My apologies. I'll make it brief. I have a commercial building within the zoning buffers that are allowed for cannabis retail and other verticals. And to give a brief viewpoint of a similar business and a similar setup that is being proposed, I fully support neighboring businesses within the buffers, and to disable the buffer zones, I think will be a good thing for the city, a good thing for free enterprise, and I think the market will dictate who stays and who goes. And I think that this is a good move. Free enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have any other member from the public that would like to speak? I think seeing none, let's move on to our committee. Does anybody in the committee have any comments or questions for staff? Oh, let's see. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Acosta.
So just to be clear here, any other additional recommendations and conditions are still being accepted right now? Is that correct, or?
So members of the commission, Commissioner Acosta, the other conditions would still apply. The one buffer that would remain, of course, is the distancing between the schools and the daycares. That's not one that we've explored removing, and is pretty standard across the state.
Sure. I guess my clarification on that specific one would just be the definition of a school. I do see higher learning serving those 18 and older, and so I guess the definition of higher learning and stuff like that, and kind of how those may be interpreted in 18 years and older, as that is a big exception to particular schools in this town as well.
So we have had, early in the process, actually the legal department did provide us some guidance in terms of how schools were defined. There still were several state statutes that actually outline the definition of a school, and we would be happy to provide you some of that documentation if need be. I don't have that with me currently. I apologize.
I mean, just clarification on that in terms of, before being completely, I guess, satisfied on that on my end. That's all. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Vega, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I think if this is approved, it'll save a lot of time for the commission and for staff as well. Just to put on the record, I think the growth opportunities for Las Cruces are great. I'd like to see more actually homegrown. You know, we have a lot of businesses coming in from out of state, and it'd be really wonderful to see some startups here in Las Cruces. So that's all.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner?
And I have one quick comment. I just want to commend staff for just reviewing the various categories as far as bars and pharmacies and drawing that comparison and the impact they would have. As Commissioner Vega stated, the industry is growing, and to be able to have local homegrown businesses established here and having an opportunity to use existing buildings, I think it's very important. We've had companies outside of New Mexico have expressed very extreme interest in establishing businesses here. So I think having the opportunity for local business people to kind of have first crack at some of these buildings that are available is good for just, I think, our local economy.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Of course.
I just want, for a point of clarification, the code amendment that is before the commission this evening is specific to a 300-foot buffer between retailers and single-family residential zone, not to do with schools. So those are the two items that you're considering this evening, just those two.
Thank you very much.
Just a point of order. In addition to that, of course, then there's also the land use, the design standards table that was omitted inadvertently.
Thank you very much for clarifying. Commissioner Kaiser?
Yeah, I just want to echo my fellow commissioners' comments towards staff. I definitely appreciate you guys seeing an opportunity to improve the process. Obviously it will save time on your end as well as ours, but I think this is a good example of recognizing something that might not be working out well and being nimble enough to accommodate it and adjust, and it's appreciated.
Absolutely, thank you. I also have a comment as well. Just expressing thanks to the staff too. We have heard so many cases in the last, year, really, for variance requests. And I know this is not going to fix, it's not going to fix all of it, but it's definitely going to make a big difference. I was actually kind of surprised when I saw the map of the eligible business areas because it, as it stands right now, it seems very limited, as one of the speakers said as well. This opens up Solano, North Main, areas where there is higher amount of population that can have access to these businesses. So just want to thank you all. In that case, can we get a motion from the commission, or is there any other questions? No? Then perfect. Could we get a motion from the commission?
Make a motion to vote on item 9.8.
I'll second.
All right.
Board Member Vega?
Yes, based on staff.
Point of order again. We need to clearly state what the vote is to be about, which is the amendment to the buffering, 300-foot buffer between retailers and from single-family dwelling residential zones.
I would recommend.
Do we need to redo the motion then?
I would recommend that specifically you could refer to this slide.
So I'll start over.
Okay.
I make a motion to vote on item 9.8 with the recommended amendments, which include sections 3.832 to restore the design standards, sections 38 through 53 on conditional uses, which eliminate the 300-foot buffer from cannabis retailers and micro businesses to the SFR zone, and eliminate the 300-foot buffer between cannabis retailers and micro businesses, as well as eliminate the SEP requirements to reduce cannabis buffer. Please let me know if I missed anything.
I'll second.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may again, please. it's been brought to my attention that there may be, Nicholas for the record, it's been brought to my attention there may be commissioners that want to vote on one and not the other. So rather than to combine them under one sentence, we probably should say first consider the separation, eliminating the separation 300-foot buffer between retailers, and then a separate motion to consider for separation from single-family residential zones. That would enable you to vote one way or the other on each of these specifics.
Okay, so we'll start with the motion to approve a vote on 9.8 to restore the design standards table.
I'll second.
All right.
Board Member Vega.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Smith.
Yes, based on staff recommendation, and it meets character and compatibility.
Board Member Kaiser.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Bennett.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Acosta.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Chairman Guerrero.
Yes, based on staff recommendation as well. Perfect, so this motion passes. So now could I get a motion for the next item?
Make a motion to vote on item 9.8 on eliminating the 300-foot buffer from cannabis retailers and micro businesses to the SFR zone.
I second.
Board Member Vega.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Smith.
Yes, based on staff recommendation and meeting character and compatibility.
Board Member Kaiser.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Bennett.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Acosta.
Yes, based on staff recommendation in compliance with the Elevate Las Cruces Comprehensive Plan.
Chair Guerrero.
Yes, based on staff recommendation and as well wanting to see more businesses flower in New Mexico. This motion passes. We have one more left. So Commissioner Vega, do you want to do this one also? Right, we still have one more, right?
The
two more.
special use permit, and
Yes.
then, so we'll go next with, make a motion to vote on item 9.8 on eliminating the 300-foot buffer between the retailers and micro businesses.
I second.
Board Member Vega.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Smith.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Kaiser.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Bennett.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Acosta.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Chair Guerrero.
Yes, based on staff recommendation as well. So this motion passes. Now we have one left.
All right.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to vote on item 9.8 to eliminate the special use permits required to reduce the cannabis buffer.
I second.
Board Member Vega.
Yes, based on staff recommendation and comments shared today.
Board Member Smith.
Yes, based on staff recommendation and meeting character and compatibility.
Board Member Kaiser.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Bennett.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Board Member Acosta.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
Chair Guerrero.
Yes, based on staff recommendation.
All 4 votes passed 6-0. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That concludes the cases in the agenda. Next item is there any further discussion on anything tonight? Looking like there's not. Then we have we moved the Realize Las Cruces update to the front, which I'm really glad we did. Next up is, do we have any announcements from staff?
I will try to take a stab at it, and Larry can correct me if I'm wrong. We have a couple of announcements in terms of maybe some staff changes you may see at these meetings. David Weir and I will still be very much involved, but we're really shifting our focus to trying to finalize the Realize Las Cruces project. So you will be seeing some people who've been here for a long time, but many of you may not know. Adam Ochoa who was a planner with the department for a long, long time and is now plans examiner, and now he's acting senior planner. So he will be showing up from time to time. And then Dr. Tim Pitts, who is one of our deputy directors, who is now assisting sort of with those duties as well. Larry, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, thank you, Catherine. No, you covered it very well. I just would briefly say that this was brought on by there was a restructuring from the city manager office for the long-range planning that was in the community development department. They've established, it's called long-range planning and implementation to the Elevate comprehensive plan. That brought a restructuring, and we made appointments to several acting positions, and then we'll be recruiting for those vacancies that were created by that restructuring. So yes, you'll be seeing some new faces, but there'll be those that have had vast experience in planning and zoning activities. I have no further announcements for the commission. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Well, change is good. Somebody had.
Can I jump in there? I just wanted to, I don't think Harvey Gordon's here, but I just wanted to thank him for his years of public service, and he will be sorely missed.
Absolutely. He's a great guy. Well, with that being said, could I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All righty, perfect.
Board Member Vega?
Yes.
Board Member Smith?
Yes.
Board Member Kaiser?
Yes.
Board Member Bennett?
Yes.
Board Member Acosta?
Yes.
Chair Guerrero?
Yes. Perfect. Well, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next month.